Is Miyako so good to read at that time?
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Blue Otter League. We are here with week 2 of the Gold Division, looking to start a fantastic series between House of Ronin and TD Bank. It's pretty early on, so right now people are just starting to get a feel for what exactly is going on in this league. But we got a handy-dandy schedule here for you guys to kind of give a perusal through, check out some of your favorite teams, and start to understand what kind of storylines are coming to the forefront here in the BOL. I'm Nyarko, going to be doing play-by-play today here alongside Eternal. How are you doing?
I'm feeling great. It's good to be back. Excited for a week to see what happens. It's like you mentioned, right? It's very early on. A lot of teams are trying to figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So there might be some random picks that might happen. There might be something that's unorthodox. Anything can really happen this early on in the season, frankly.
Yeah, for sure. We got a lot of really cool teams coming back, returning faces from Blue Otter League seasons of the past, and some new contenders as well. Like I said, for tonight, it's going to be House of Ronin and TD Bank. TD Bank has kind of just renamed themselves from TD Aftermath for those of you trying to keep track of all that. So that's just something to watch out for. And notably, these two have had some action-packed weeks leading up to tonight, Eternal. House of Ronin has some pretty crazy numbers under their belt that you were pulling up. TD Bank still looking for the first win here in this split.
Yeah, just some of the numbers I pulled up is that not only is Ronin actually third overall in the league, so you have 21 teams, so they're third out of 21 for the highest KDA. Uh, but on top of that, they actually are tied for first with another team in the same division that you see on your screen, Noxus. That you see that giant N that's blue, that's actually their team that's tied a 25-13 game timer. Granted, they unfortunately lost week 1, which funny enough was House of Ronin. Uh, but yeah, that 25-13 game timer would explain that. But I mean, if you're looking at Rona, I feel like they're probably the heavy favorites coming into this matchup early on.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, this is still pretty early on, so there's still a lot to be said regarding how these teams are going to play out. Maybe it's the case that TD Bank is just going to have a strategy that kind of counters this aggressive play that House of Ronin seems to be noted for, but we'll just have to wait and see. Some of the other teams to watch out for, I think, in the Noxus division that are playing tonight, Hyperion Copies, they're the one that we haven't actually seen yet at all. They had a bye in that first week, given the odd number of teams. And so this will be the first time just kind of strutting their stuff and showing out against Conduit Sports Esports Kraken, who themselves are a team who kind of struggled in that first week, going 0-2. It's actually a pretty interesting dynamic so far. It's been clean 0-2s or 2-0s throughout the entirety of the first week. So seeing that being the case, I would love to see a little bit more action tonight, maybe a little bit more contestation instead of a flattening of a team here and there.
Yeah, I think that also makes for a better storyline too, right? You don't want to just go into it, okay, another 2-0 week, like, all right, pack it up, go home. Like, you want to see a little fight back. You want to see them go to that game 3. You want to see that stress level, see how they both these teams handle under pressure. Because if you're getting 1-0 and then you kind of mental boom for game 2, well, if that's kind of how you're going to play your series, then you ultimately have to win the first game, or it's just going to be another 2-0 week.
Yeah, for sure. And the Blue Water League is kind of on an interesting schedule versus a lot of these other amateur leagues. And so while many of those guys are kind of moving into playoffs right now, here starting so early on in the season, I think it's a whole new perspective and something that's really fresh to see right now, so late on into the summer. All these teams just kind of trying to find their footing. And if, they're participating in multiple leagues, playing in multiple games per week, this is kind of a way for some of these teams to start over, get a new footing, and just try to build up for a really solid season. So I'm super excited to see how the everyone in this gold bracket is going to be doing. It's really, really great to be here. Honestly, kind of sad I missed that first week, but we got a lot ahead of us. That's for sure, Eternal.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we're in for the long haul, so uh, it is a goal league. Anything can happen. Anything probably will happen, right? I mean, we've seen plenty of insane Baron steals, right? We've seen AK goal leads. I gotta admit a true story where I did play in Blue Water League in a best of 5, and we lost 2 games with a 10k goal lead. So with that experience, I'm fully aware that there's plenty of stories that could be driven on just macro and decisions in the mid game.
Yeah, for sure. And I really do kind of love that volatility. I think that it brings a whole new light because we did say pretty early on here in this broadcast that House of Ronin most likely going to be the big favorite coming in just due to the stats they put up in week number 1. But they can still throw games. Perhaps that over aggressiveness will cost them. We'll definitely have to see. And I'm very excited to just kind of get a feel for how things will play out. And speaking of playing out, we are getting right on into the draft here, folks. Bans coming out already, knocking the Akali out of the way on the side of TD Bank.
Yeah, and then from Rona, they don't want to play with that Kane. I can't blame it. Kane is a very slippery jungler right now, kind of like how Viego is. And kind of going on, I feel like Viego might be a high pick here. We'll see what either team wants to do. Obviously, TD Bank does have the first pick, as we see Karma being banned away. Um, and quick point just for the two teams, while Ronin is very scrappy, I feel based on the way TD Bank plays, they like to stall the game out. They like to slow. They like to pick these scaling champions. So I looked at the goal difference. It was only 2K between both of these teams. Granted, Ronin finished at 25 minutes, and the other team took almost up to 40. But you look at that, what's gonna, it's unstoppable object means movable force type of situation. So it's either Ronin plays aggressive early and they just roll over, or if they hold off that aggression, then that kind of allows TD Bank to come back and scale.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing that play through already. Sivir going to be snapped up by TD Bank. This has been a fantastic, super on meta ADC that's really come to the forefront of play, both in solo queue and competitive in the past few weeks. Getting it here as such high priority, I think, is a really good use of TD Bank's first selection.
I also think it's very smart to ban the Yumi out from the side of Ronin. Definitely like Sivir Yumi is already an annoying pickup. Zeri is another annoying champion that scales well with her. So Seraphine being locked in here. She's actually right now, according to the list, for champions being picked, she's actually number 1 right now. So just in the first week, she was picked 10 times or banned with an 86% chance. So this is a highly contested pick, and there's a reason why. I mean, you get one encore in that big game team fight, you lock up 3, 4 people, that fight's over, and it doesn't matter if you were behind 4K gold. That is a complete shift in tempo, whatever you want to call it. But she's I hate Seraphine, but she has so many good qualities about her just from her kit and the way she synergizes well with the overall team that I have to give the champion credit for where she's played.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I come from the opposite side. I absolutely adore Seraphine, but they're kind of up
Ugh.
against the progenitor in a way here with the Sona. And speaking to that dynamic you were talking about earlier, Eternal, I think it's really
Mhm.
coming through. TD Bank going to play very safe there on the bot side of the map, try not to get rooted up, just play out of Seraphine's poke range, get heals, get that Moonstone Renewer onto the Sona, and then become powerhouses later on. Volibear also selected here, going to be a nice little ramp up to that late game. They'll have a little bit more meat, a little bit more early game presence because of that selection.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't matter if Oliver falls behind a little bit. As long as you get 1 or 2 tank items, he's completely he's fine to go back in the fray. And especially with Sivir's speed up, he should be able to track down any target that needs to be tracked down. Granted, Zeri can jump over walls, so it's gonna be very hard to lock her down. But I mean, Seraphine's still a squishy target, as we see Trundle kind of being picked into the Volibear to take away that tankiness. I also wouldn't be surprised if Seraphine has played mid, so they might be using that as a flex pick. That could be something to look out for as we see coming into these next draft ban fix.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of flexibility there, putting Seraphine either into that mid or bot lane. Really like the Trundle selection. There is some amount of flex that House of Ronin can utilize with that champion as well, going either top or into the jungle. But honestly, I'm such a fan of the troll in the jungle role. Specifically, that's where I hope we're going to kind of see them. Moving on to this next wave of bans, we're going to be seeing that Ornn knocked out on the side of House of Ronin. Really like to see that taken away. I feel especially in gold leagues and below, oftentimes we see people not valuing the amount of gold that Ornn can generate for a team, especially for one that's looking to scale as much as TD Banks.
Yeah, I mean, Ornn is definitely called the Forge guy comes, like you said, call the Forge guy comes in. I forget what service alternates call at the moment, but additional speed up. Volibear jumps in. Sona, right, locks everyone down, and now you're just in this giant meat grinder. And especially with the sustain that TD Bank has, it's going to be extremely hard to deal with that front line. So taking Ornn is just a very smart pick, as well as a Silas on top of that. So extremely smart. House Ronin has definitely done their homework picking into TB.
Yeah, for sure. That Snap Silas ban, super good for House of Ronin, making sure that you can't just knock away some of these big ultimates that could come through from the side of House of Ronin. I mean, getting something like that Seraphine ult and just kind of turning that Encore back around can just change the pace of team fights, especially with such good follow-up in the form of things like Sivir ult. So really happy to see how House of Ronin is approaching this. And meanwhile, TD Bank going to be knocking away those top laners, Yone and Fiora, both incredible solo carry powerhouses. Given the stats we saw out of House of Ronin's top lane, I'm not surprised that they're taking away some of these very powerful solo carries.
Yeah, absolutely. I checked the top laner. He went 9-1 and 8, so with a 17 KDA, he's definitely scary, especially if you put him on a bruiser or some type of carry champion. Smart picking the mid lane here because, like you just mentioned, Trundle is that flex pick, so he could be made top, could be jungle as well. So they're kind of going to let TD Bank decide: do you want your Volibear in that top lane? Do you want him jungle? And they should be able to have that counter pick for the top lane.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, that Victor, I think, is also kind of a champion that will allow for House of Ronin to scale and kind of match up to some of the power that will come through for TD Bank in the late game. It's going to be a bit of insurance. And up against a Malzahar that will push into them, but doesn't really threaten a whole lot until level 6, I think that this is a pretty smart move. TD Bank, meanwhile, looking for some solid pick action there. Sona ult can stun someone fantastically in a chase scenario, and Malzahar is just the ultimate pick champion, especially if you have Volibear coming on into that mid lane at any point.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was just about to be like, oh, they have the perfect pick combo, especially with Volibear and Malzahar jumping in, and Sona can lock him up. So very good job analysis on your end, just immediately calling that out. As we got 2 seconds on the clock, we'll see what they pick for House of Ronin. It is going to be Gnar, so they are going to throw the Gnar into Mundo, and honestly, that's a great pickup. Just they have a giant beefy front line with Trundle and Gnar. You have a Seraphine that's going to speed you up constantly, make sure you're safe, and Victor and Zeri have to poke out. So now, if you're TD Bank, you can't be engaged on. They have engaged tools, right? You have Mega Gnar. And if you're side TD Bank, it's hard to get to that back line because you don't exactly have as many mobile champions. You do have a Sivir, so at least you have a little bit, but you don't have as many mobile champions as Ronin does, so it's going to be extremely difficult for TD Bank to play front-to-back team fights.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I think that front to back team fights are going to really be a huge, hotly contested commodity in this game, just because you have the ability to control these choke points on both sides. Trundle Pillar, Seraphine Ultimate on one side, Malzahar, Sona Ultimate on the other. You really need to be judicious about how you're going to approach things like Dragon, like Rift Herald, or even Baron later on, because I think that if you miss position, if you don't get a solid base of operations or some picks off, you can really struggle on approaching either of these teams. And I think that huge throws or huge pickups can be made in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can like it's kind of what we talked about earlier in the beginning of this, before the broadcast was you can be ahead as much as you want, but as soon as you get picked by 2, 3 members, you have a giant shutdown that gets over. That allows them to get a key item that they might have been missing. That allows them to get back in the game. And if you're either back in the game and there's a team fight that goes awry, or maybe they burn a flash early on by a pick and they come back and have a re-engage, that plays dividends, right? And that dividend just slowly snowballs into your team climbing back, and especially with just having Sivir in that bot lane, we mentioned the CS differential between these teams. That allows them to scale in late game and just wave clear. So smart pickup by Sivir for the at least early pickup. Great pickup on the side of Ronin because obviously Zeri exactly doesn't have the greatest wave clear. It kind of takes a little bit just for the auto attacks. So that's smart pickup on the side of Victor. But I'm honestly excited to see how both these teams play because it's going to be heavily contested. I believe jungle camps as well as skirmishes early on. So I'm actually really excited for this.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm super excited too because, it's been a while since I've casted a Gold League game. And in that intervening time, I forgot that a lot of these players, have developed their mechanics and their macro to the point where it does matter that they're picking on meta, that they aren't just going for comfort choices, right? You occasionally will see something that, maybe you wouldn't see in a super high elo game here and there. But for the most part, these are very astute and very good drafts that I think really have their ear to the ground regarding what's going on in the meta. For instance, I really think that the Sivir is just going to have a pretty solid time in this lane. I know that Zeri has been hit with a lot of nerfs, but I still think that in coordinated play where you have these team fights where you can pop off with your ultimate, they're going to be great. But I think that getting that Sivir out early will just give them such a fantastic amount of time with which to scale up, get gold, and they're able to sustain with that Sona as well. So big heads up for TD Bank for sure, especially given that game plan that you've been talking about so far, Eternal, with this unstoppable force versus a movable object dynamic. A lot there to really pick through, and I'm super excited to see how they bring everything to the table.
So I think as far as the table, I think the way Trundle paths, right? You do have Prio top lane, but you shouldn't have to go there too much just because Nara can easily poke down Mundo, should be able to control that wave and kind of keep him at a distance. I feel like the major lane that's going to be played around is going to be the spot lane. If Zeri gets ahead, she's absolute menace. Obviously, if Sivir has an early I can't. I don't. Not Noon Quiver. She's going to be insanely hard to push against. Then she just waves clear, then roams mid with her mid laner. Keeps putting Victor under tower, and that allows you to get either Rift Herald or Deeper Vision in the jungle. So I think, in my opinion, the bot lane is going to be the most contested lane, at least for game one.
Yeah, I mean, it's been bot focused for so long, it feels like, in League,
Yeah,
ever since, especially since this
yeah.
durability update. Yeah, I
And the
think
dragon
that
changes on top of it.
100%. Yeah. So, no, I totally agree with that. And also, given the kinds of junglers that we're seeing picked up here with that Trundle, with that Volibear, they don't necessarily have the most CC, right? They need to be able to go to a lane that's a little bit more immobile. Mundo can tank so much CC just with the utilization of that passive. Gnar has that hop, skip, and jump away. So, kind of going on to something like that Sivir and Sona, I think is really going to be good for House of Ronin. TD Bank may have a little bit more difficult of a time. Obviously, Seraphine is relatively immobile, but Zeri, like you were talking about before, has that E, that wall dash away. So that's something to watch out for sure. So yeah, overall, a lot of variables at play here. Both of these teams hungry for a win. House of Ronin wants to cement their name and their legacy here in the Blue Otter League. Make sure that they start off on the right foot in this series. Meanwhile, TD Bank hungry for that first win, and I'm certain that they're bringing their A game in order to try to get it. With this in mind, we're going to throw it to a quick break, but when we return, we're going to be deep into game number one between these two teams. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League. We are here with week 2 of Gold Games in a match between TD Bank and House of Ronin. This is going to be an exciting one as these teams are still just trying to find their footing here in this league. And there's going to be a lot of action ahead of us for sure, as House of Ronin hungers for blood from the very start of the game. They look for big leads very quickly. And meanwhile, TD Bank, they've drafted relatively conservatively, have really solid scaling. So we're going to see whether or not House of Ronin is going to be able to have their way, or whether or not TD Bank will slow their roll here. Eternal, what are you looking for here in the first opening minutes of the game?
Well, the first opening minutes is going to be establishing pressure, and at the very least, kind of vision control. No one's going to be invading. That's fine. So they're going to be stacking up individually, which is perfectly acceptable. No issues there. The one thing I did kind of look at a little bit as I was looking at the bot lane, I was looking at their summoner spells and what they had available. So both of these teams are going to be heavily reliant on their supports for these heals. There is no heal for either lane. They do have exhaust on Sivir and do have exhaust on the Seraphine. Sona does have Ignite, so hopefully they use it to advantage to look for maybe an all-in at level 2, chunk them out heavily, and then basically take over that the wave state from that point on.
Yeah, and you were talking before about the focus that we're going to have towards that bot side of the map. It's probably going to be the case that we're getting a topside start here for Sanve on that Volibear, which does mean that they have a chance at coming down here relatively quickly and trying to put some pressure onto Impact Lunar and Measurable there for the Ronin side.
I think it's smart personally. I mean, obviously, unless Channel does some type of weird gank where he gets basically the whole blue side and then wraps all the way around bot, which is going to be very awkward and not doesn't flow for basically any which way you cut it. However, Volibear should do blue, should do Gromp. If he wants to full clear down, he can. He could just also just go straight to red, hit level 3, and look for a gank bot lane. But it's going to be based on the wave state, so we'll have to pay attention to that. But also, I didn't mention it in the pre-draft, but Malzahar pre-6 is very vulnerable. He does not have many escapes, so if Trundle wants to, he could potentially look for an early gank mid lane.
Yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for. I think it's going to be down to Rimhang, though, and whether or not they're going to be able to get a lot of poke down onto Mal's, soften up that champion so that Usain can actually come in and get a solid engage down onto Infernosk. A lot of dynamic plays around the map to be had. The question is, how are these trades going to happen, and who's going to come out on top regarding a wave management? You know, big thing here in gold for sure.
Yep, and as we're kind of seeing already, the main focus is going to be both of these supports. These, like we mentioned, not even a minute ago, they are the ones that these AD carries are reliant for all these heals. Obviously, they prove me wrong with the ADC, but if you're in this matchup, right, we both have both these supports constantly healing, constantly giving you movement speeds. You want to chunk them out early. If your ADC has no heals, just like that, perfect route, and she goes in. Oh, if they followed, I think
Wow.
she was dead.
Yeah, AP Buggy
Oh.
taking a whole lot of hurt there after the root comes through for Impact's Lunar off that double beat drop. That's something you gotta watch out for. You have such solid range on the Seraphine, and Sona needs to walk up to be able to get procs onto that Spell Thief's edge only with Q spam. So you're really at a disadvantage, especially if you go so low on health and mana early. You really kind of need that tier to start to get going in that lane as Sona.
And that's exactly how you play that matchup. I mean, you look at she is completely out of mana at this point, so she's not going to be able to constantly get the heal spams, or if Sivir's caught out position and a little bit of movement speed. As we do see Volibear potentially looking for a fight, but I mean, Sona is low. They could easily kill it, and he decides not to and just takes the bottom Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, Hussein coming on in. That's a really solid pillar, basically completely pinning Infernosk to the side wall. There's the flash coming out here. Convi coming into lane to try to save their mid laner, but look at the poke coming down. The chase will be had. W might be enough for Hussein to catch up to Infernosk there. First blood gonna go over to the troll for the House of Ronin.
And exactly what I predicted. Malzahar is very vulnerable pre-6, kind of like how TF is. At least TF has a gold card, but Malzahar doesn't have anything. All he has is wave push, and basically that's it. So great rotation, good awareness by Usair on the side of Ronin coming out. Fantastic pillar sticking him against the wall. Also, great gravity field coming out of Rimhenge on that Victor. Has nowhere to go except the opposite side. Tracks him down, and that's a nice first blood over the side of Ronin.
Yeah, and across the lanes, you're kind of seeing the ripple effects of the presence of both of the junglers there. Both of the bot laners are trying to just kind of push up, keep that wave in the mid, and just get poke off where they can. AP Buggy staying in lane here has gotten some of their health back and will continue to be able to ply their trade with those Q pokes. But look at that punishment that you get in return just trying to go up to measurable or impact.
Yeah, and I mean it's so difficult, right? They like you mentioned, they just have the range on you. So it feels like, one step forward, two steps back. You're trying to be proactive, you're trying to chunk them out, but every time you do it, you're getting two hits back to you in response, and oh man, gets the root and stops the back. So a little bit desync. So now Sivir is forced to catch this wave, which is fine. I mean, she definitely has the wave clear, but honestly, I don't hate this just because Sona gets to get a free back essentially.
Yeah, TDK going to stay in lane here. The thing is, Measurable and Impact Lunar do need it back as well, but they're getting a solid crash and maybe a bit of priority over this bot side river. The first dragon is up, so that's probably where a lot of eyes are going to be focusing. So you really have to be careful when you go for those kinds of pushes and whatnot. And I wouldn't be surprised if the first little bit of action that we see outside of that first blood is going to be over that Ocean Drake.
Yep, and then I just mentioned how they were desynced. Now Ronin's desynced in the bot lane. Seraphine went back, and Zeri is forced to catch the wave because, oh, that might be a dead
big
Malzahar
sun
mid
up
lane.
here onto Infernus, and look at this. That level 6 power spike for the victor is so
Oh!
devastating.
Oh!
Infernus on that Malzahar, able to get out of the lane, but only on a sliver of health. Meanwhile, we got some action on that bot side river. It looks like TD Bank are trying to start up the dragon. Usain is here alongside Measurable. They're going to continue to push forward. It looks like AP Buggy has to flash away due to Trundle Pillar. Rimhang
What
coming
a
down from
great
that mid lane,
damage.
and that double stun up onto the Sona and the Sivir going to be disastrous as Measurable is going to grab one, and Usain wants more alongside that Zeri, and now you have a 2-0 Trundle on the map. That's a disastrous set of plays there for TD Bank, and now House of Ronin has claim over this dragon.
Well, you want to talk about ripple effects. That it starts with the mid lane and essentially cascades over to the bot lane. Malzahar gets pushed out, which allows Victor to have roam potential and first priority. Zeri and Seraphine get the poke on Sivir. Valor's on the dragon, should have backed off earlier, and because Victor is able to get that priority, locks two down with Gravity Well, and the rest is history. A free 2 kills and a dragon gifted over for the side of Ronin.
About a 1,500 gold lead has now been built for Red Squad. That's not too terrible, but given the fact that we've seen House of Ronin run away with games off of less, this is going to be a scary situation for sure, Eternal. I'm really interested to see how TD Bank is going to recover from this early game loss.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, okay, obviously the early game is not going in our favor. We've made some mistakes. How do we correct it? What are we supposed to do? And it all starts down with just communication at that point, right? Either you're desynced or what have you, but okay, it gets blue. I was worried the blue was going to be stolen, that's why I stopped talking. But
Yeah. Seiya
no,
is with a big invade.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it's just gonna come to like communications, and then if you're behind at this point, you need numbers advantage for skirmishes. You don't win them when you're even.
Yeah, AP Buggy caught out here. Really nice wait in the bush for Usain, and they're going to be
Good
rewarded with
exhaust.
1 kill and maybe a second as TDK is trying to kite back towards tower. Beat drop not going to land, but it's not even needed. The troll is a monster on the rift.
And that was a great exhaust. Impact Lunar knowing that Sivir is going to be caught up. So Trundle is able to basically just kind of run up and beat down Sona with his giant baseball bat. And then is able to turn on the Sona, get a double kill. And if you look at that bot lane, we said that that was the highest point of contention for this match. Both of these hyper carries in the AC as Volibear might be funned up. And
Yeah,
that's a
Ronin
dead there.
Seiya coming on in full rage stacks, going to be able to take over this Rift Herald alongside Victor. That being said, Infernos is in the area now. Solid channel of the ultimate is finally going to lock down that mid laner, and so now Kythel can give chase to Ronin Seiya alongside Infernos and
Does that
AP Buggy.
flash?
There's the flash coming forward, but Kythel has one as well. They're going to whiff their Q, and so this might not be enough healing for the Nard to get back towards tower, and somehow they make it out of that chase alive. I like the aggression there onto that Rift Herald, and it did a solid thing interrupting a convey, but ultimately TD Bank roamed well, rotated fantastically, and now they have control over the river once again.
That was a great roam. I just don't think you kill Gnar. I mean, I looked at Rift while they were chasing him. It was at 600 health. I think you probably could have taken it, and then obviously if Gnar steps up, then you go on him. But overall, that's not bad. You still get a kill on Victor, right? You burn the flash out of Gnar. So at least they're fighting back and they got something on situation. As we see, well, Sivir is once again being picked on in his bot lane.
For sure, but the one thing I will point out is for being 0-2 and without a support right now, TDK is hanging on, actually surpassing Zeri's current CS, which is pretty impressive and I think very valuable for TD Bank as we move on into that late game. If you can keep up that farm, you really have a chance at stabilizing and making sure that the 6 kills that House of Ronin currently have aren't going to be the death knell for your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially, I mean, like I said, Malzahar and Sivir definitely have wave clear, so they're not that concerned about it. I mean, yes, you do have Victor, you do have Zeri, but we talked about it early on. If they can just hang on and just slowly scale, they'll be able to come back. This Malzahar might be... No, okay, he's okay. Although they didn't have flash, you could have all did him. But regardless, you still have ways to stall this game out. And if you're the side for TDB, that's what you want to do at this point. Just stall it out, get the items you need, and then look for the engages. Don't risk it. Don't try and rush it, because if you rush plays early, that's how you make that gold lead balloon out of control.
Convey going to come back to Shelly. That being said, Ronin Seiya already on this objective, but thunderstorms are being called down. The question is TD Bank going to do anything about the mob of 3 now occupying that topside river?
I think you got to give this up. I mean, you look at they're out of position right now.
Yeah, for sure. Convey going to move away from it. But that being said, Kaithal coming down. They want a piece of this action. That being said, they are now mobbed. Reinhang, though, taking quite a bit of damage, continually chased down by the Mundo, who's going where they please. And with a few more bone saws, they're going to be able to do it. Can they get out from under Usain, though? The answer is no. And now Infernos gets in a little bit of trouble as well. The double coming through for the Trundle.
Oh, the rift! He didn't get the rift. It expired.
Oh no! I thought he picked it up before that. I didn't even notice.
No,
Gosh.
he left to go protect Victor. Oh.
No, kills on the board, and now the Trundle is 5-0, so there's still definitely positives for Ronin here.
Oh yeah, that's. I mean, your Trundle's the biggest one on the map right now. Level 8 to level 7, 5 kills on his belt. So he is definitely a force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, they just don't get the rifts in that process. But I mean, hey, that's still a 2-for-1 at the end of the day, and you'll take that if you decide to run in.
Yeah. Bot side of the map, we got some interesting dynamics coming through for now. AP Buggy just now cresting that level 6 mark. All of these ultimates being up means that there is the possibility of an engage even without jungler interference, but the Trundle and the Volley are both trying to inch their way down. That being said, there is that control ward in the river and the dragon up, so a lot of action is probably to be had around here, especially now that the Rift Herald is taken off the map.
Also, good word by Sonnen to put that down in the Dragon Pit, so they know that Trundle is now in the area. I will say for this bot lane, it's just whoever's going to pull the trigger first. Either Sona or Seraphine. Whoever does that first is essentially going to dictate how that fight goes. And if you look at the items for both Sivir and Zeri, they both have the Noon Quiver with only Zeri having the fully upgraded boots. But even then, they should be able to take this dragon. They definitely have priority. We'll see what happens, but hopefully they have vision. They don't have it on the backside of the map. But yeah, they're just going to give it up.
Yeah, Convey just going to drop a little storm there, realize that it's being taken, and will just back their way on out. No crazy stealing shenanigans quite yet. One thing I do want to talk about here, Eternal, that I think is a big boon for TD Bank is the fact that they have done pretty darn well for themselves in the farming department, outside of the jungle, where the Trundle is just absolutely massive. But,
Yeah,
you know, going positive there at the top lane and the mid, even though there's been such pressure in both of those lanes, I think is really impressive and speaks to TD's ability to have a chance of stabilizing this game.
No, yeah, definitely. Like I said, the fact that you're down this much and you're actually CSing, like every single lane is actually out CSing their opponents, obviously besides jungle. That's still positive. That means that you can still get the gold that you need, you can still get the items, and you can actually still contest, whether that be skirmishes or fights. Yes, the gold lead is 3.7k. However, that doesn't matter when almost all of that gold is on your jungle. The rest of your champions or solo carries are not that strong, so they can still look for these fights.
Yeah, and as long as you control vision, you know, you could do a lot to hinder Trundle ganks. Obviously, you can't push up too far or the Troll's going to get more kills. But at least for the
Oh,
time being, things are relatively stable. That being said, bot lane, there's definitely some action for sure. Impact Lunar going to have to flash away here. Measurable has been taken out. TDK continuing to give chase. It is a trade of an ADC for a support at the end of the day. But Sivir getting a kill on the board is a big deal for TDB.
that's a massive big deal because not only is Sivir going to collect all the solo XP, she's getting another wave. She's going to be able to collect another more XP, more CS, get the gold that she needs. And yeah, you killed Sona, but your lane's the one that winning. You definitely do not want your Zarya to die in that situation. And if you look at all the summoner spells, both of them burned everything. So this bot lane is completely wide open for both teams.
Oh, I like this rotation a lot. Inferno's going to pull the trigger here. Victor has nowhere to go. And so Convey is going to help their mid laner grab a kill back against the Victor. And now they're going to be able to crash that wave into the tower. AP Buggy freed up on this map as well, roaming around, just trying to light up the map like a Christmas tree. And like I said before, prevent more ganks from Hussein.
I'm really like the way that gank. That's how Malzahar is so easily set up for any kind of jungler. There's just one ability in their kit that's some form of CC. Doesn't matter who it is. He sets up ganks, and that Nether, that R, locks you down. You can't move. You are essentially a sitting duck. You see Volibear and Sona roam bot side.
Yeah,
And
this is
yes,
going to be an interesting play down here as Hussein is still sitting here in bush. They're going to be able to clear up that control ward that's sitting in the river. And now the question is, are they just going to walk into the
oh,
waiting
I don't
arms
know.
of the troll? AP Buggy going to have to try to face check this one. Will drop their ultimate and stun up the Trundle for just a little bit, but it's not long enough to keep them alive, as now 2 kills are coming through for the side of Ronin, forcing the teleport out of Kythal, but he's immediately getting smacked down. This Trundle was absolutely monstrous. Convey can't do anything measurable, continuing to take pot shots from the back line, and they're wiping out 4 members. This is a huge turnaround, and Ronin now have clear control of the game.
I talked about being patient and not trying to force, and that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, Trundle sees it. If you're Sivir, you just have to essentially run away at that point. You just gotta leave your support to die. But they try and go back in. They turn on Sivir. Remember, this is a Trundle that had 5 kills to his name. It was 5-0 and 2 at one point. You have a full Divine Thunderer. He is not going down easy. And then when Mundo teleported, oh wait, he hasn't even popped his ultimate. Thank you. Let me steal all that health. Let me remove that armor. And well, you still have a Zarya alive, and they easily chased down both the Volibear and the Mundo, getting 4 kills. And not only did you lose tower bot lane, because he had a teleport, Nara is able to crack down the tower top side, and that 3k gold lead is now 7k gold lead at 17 minutes.
Yeah, it's rough. And for all of the vision control I was just praising the side of TD Bank for, they forgot some of the most important one, which is just simply inside of a lane. Sona, you know, roaming around the map, getting down a lot of wards, but all of a sudden just kind of walking blindly into a bush in lane and costing them basically 4 kills, means that you now have gotten yourself in a horrible situation as TD Bank. You're going to have to basically focus on picks, play around the Malzahar, and from there just hopefully claw back some gold so you can start contesting objectives again.
Yeah, a little bit. And Trundle's on the top side of the map. He is rotating down, so they do not have the numbers for this. Mundo's at least getting some solo farm and XP for himself, but Dragon's up in 11. He doesn't have teleport, so this is a 5v4.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any way that TDB is going to contest this. They're going to have to give this third Drake up. It's not sold quite yet, but you have to realize that Ronin now has the ability to dictate the pace of the map pretty substantially because, hey, in 5 minutes, you got to come calling and you got to try to stop this Hextech Soul from coming through.
Yeah, and as I said, they should give it up. I mean, you just got Mega Gnar. You do not win that. And the big thing about that is you can do Rift. That is the play, so that is what they're calling. So they can take this, but Ronin should know that's up, and that should be the next objective that they're rotating towards.
Yeah, and honestly, you could kind of give this over to TD Bank. As long as you continue to pressure every single lane as well as the Ronin has been doing, I just can't imagine that this Shelly is going to get a whole lot of value over to Blue Squad.
Yeah, not too much. I mean, if you want to get the mass effectiveness, you just drop it down mid. We see how low that tower is. Find an angle, drop it over a wall or something like that, and just immediately run it out, let it hit the tower. But at that point, that's kind of all you can do, because now that you hit Shelly, the objective timer is slowly going to be in a cooldown and kind of run away. But I mean, again, we talk about the CS differential, we talk about the wave clear, and Sivir is just cleaning up these waves. So yes, that 7K is now only 6K thanks to the additional rift take. But again, it's so annoying to play into these comps because while you may be ahead, they're not down yet, and it's such a slugfest to basically crack that nexus.
Yeah, most definitely. And also, you can't do anything too foolhardy in order to try to get that Shelly into a point where it's getting value. Because if TDB pushes up too far, goes down a lane too far away from the rest of the team, all of a sudden you're either getting caught out, getting wiped, and you're getting Baron claimed for Ronin, or you're just going to be too far away to protect from some of the picks that you can definitely go for on Red Squad side.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like, they still have the pick potential, so they're not out of it yet. And also, thank you for the observers for swapping over to the gold. I looked at it real quick, did some quick math. The 4K, you take that, let's say give 4K back to the Valver. Now it's only 35 to 37K. So this still is a wide open game. You just cannot be there when Trundle's there. Or if Trundle is there, you need to lock him down with all of your ultimates and essentially get that shutdown. Granted, it is a very big risk, big reward play because if it goes awry, you essentially give them a free Baron. But at this point in the game, you kind of have to start making some risky plays because the early game has not boded well for you.
Yeah, that's for sure. That being said, you can't discount the other members of Ronin right now while you're kind of using all of your abilities to lock down the Trundle. That series still has 4 kills on them. They're still up at least 1,500 gold over TDK on the Sivir, and they can be absolutely monstrous with the mobility that Zeri provides. Same kind of thing. Impact Luna will be able to just kind of sit in the backline, drop down encores, and really cause chaos for the side of TDB. So you have a lot that you have to play with and watch out for. And so with that all in mind, you really have TDB on that back foot. They got a shot here, but it is going to be a Hail Mary.
Yeah, very
All right,
true.
Ronin going to get stunned up here due to AP Buggy, but will be able to hop, skip, and jump their way away. And now they have just turned into a bait. Impact Lunar with a great encore going to hit both AP Buggy and Kaithal. Sayona going to be the first one going down. Convey trying to lead the charge back towards their base. Kaithal not going to be able to make it in time due to the chomp coming out of the Trundle. And so now you are down 2 members. All of Red Squad, except for Victor, is topside. They might push for the Baron here.
They might. I think they're still waiting to see if there's any stragglers. Might as well clean some camps in the process. And yeah, that should be a free Baron. That started with trying to go on Gnar. I get the idea, right? You think he's caught out, but, well, you don't have that much deep vision as we just saw there. So they weren't aware that, hey, reinforcements were on the backside, and they arrived just in time, getting 2 kills and essentially giving them a free Baron 22 minutes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to look at this not only as Baron, but this is basically insurance for Ronin that they're going to be getting the soul here in just a few moments, because now you have so much freedom to just push out these lanes, get priority over River, and from there, turn that into a big play around that dragon. I don't even know if it's worth it to contest at this point for the side of TDB. They might just have to play through soul rather than trying to defend this last drag.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say this, I think I think you're forced to give this up. You look at it, you have an 8-0 Trundle, like you mentioned before, a 4-1 Zeri. Gnar is still dangerous with Mega Gnar. I mean, Seraphine hasn't died either, so as we just saw in the last one Encore shreds your team. And if you lose Soul and they have Baron, they can essentially crack your base wide open. They may not be able to end because it's still kind of early, relatively early, but yeah, I think at this point you're just kind of forced to give up this dragon and play for Soul.
Yeah, for sure. And we're already seeing the clustering of a Red Squad here around that bot side river. They want to make sure that they're picking this Hextech Drake up. It's such a powerful soul as well. That ability to spread damage throughout team fights, especially combined with effects like Seraphine's ultimate, I think just makes this team almost unstoppable in 5v5s from now on. Kaithal gonna venture forward here alongside the rest of Blue Squad. So it looks like they're in fact going to go for it. Trundle Pillar going to slow down so many members. Double beat drop going to land onto Kaithal, but he has his passive up. Rift Scuttler going to go down in favor of Ronin, but that doesn't matter anymore. It's the fight at hand. Convey trying to run forward here. Hussein already dealing a ton of damage to his fellow jungler. Seraphine ult going to whiff though, so that's going to give a second shot of life here for Blue Squad as they're pushed back into their own jungle. Kythel continuing to work there as the front line. AP Buggy trying to heal up where they can. Zeri getting a lot of poke off through that wall with their W. And so right now, I think that this is finally where TD Bing realizes we got to give this one up. Actually, never
Yeah,
mind.
the
They're
thing
gonna come
was,
back
oh,
through bot side again. Sorry about that, Eternal. The vision was covered a little bit by the score screen here. Yeah, Convey continuing to lay siege alongside the rest of Blue Squad here, trying to find a way onto this pit. A lot of wiggling back and forth. Nobody really wants to pull the trigger quite yet. A lot of core abilities burnt on both sides already. No ultimates left for Red Squad. But look at this. Due to the stalling, Ronin Seiya gonna get a big split off the top side. He still has that Baron buff, and now he's gonna start working away at the Nexus turrets. I think that TD Bank has to do something now, or they're giving up both Dragon and the base itself. As we see Kythel trying to walk forward, trying to find a little bit of space against Seiya. Convey coming forward with an ultimate of their own, but Measurable is just too strong, going to be able to pop that Volibear. AP Buggy falling not far behind, and now look at this, the turnaround. Measurable is monstrous with a double-double so far, and they were going to turn that one into a triple kill, and Ronin is in Mega Gnar form, just happy to bear down on that last tower. I think that this is all that they wrote for TD Bank here in game number 1. Ronin gonna have to move it back a little bit though. Kythel finally is going to get a little bit of priority in terms of damage onto the Gnar, so it's not gonna be quite the end of the game.
there's
Measurable
the
might have something
theory.
else to say about this. It's absolute madness in this base, one after the other. They're all
Done.
challenging to get that last little bit of damage in. Hussein with the chomps, I think he's gonna be able to do it here, especially with the Seraphine providing covering fire from behind.
We said it was gonna be crazy and chaos, and we said they were gonna be very aggressive. And yeah, unfortunately, they made that dragon fight so extended that I couldn't point out that it was a 5v4. Gnar immediately teleported top lane, so TDB knew that they had a numbers advantage, right? They knew, okay, we gotta go in, now. It's a 5v4. This is the best chance we have. But the problem was they just outplayed it. They knew for a fact, okay, you have to play into us. We don't have to play into you. We don't have to start Dragon. Our Nara's top lane with a Triforce that can just take towers like none other. He has Baron, and he just kept slowly pushing the wave after wave. They tried to go in. It didn't work. Mundo now has to force back. Now you're at an even numbers advantage. Well, we just talked about the fact that Zeri and Trundle are these big carries. You're not going to win that fight 4v4. And unfortunately, they just didn't know what to do. They kind of panicked a little bit. They were kind of split. And, well, that's kind of what happens. And that's game 1 for the side of Ronin.
Yeah, absolute madness for sure. I think that we see why Ronin was putting up the results that they were in that first week, Eternal. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that was absolute domination. They played that fantastically from a macro perspective. I mean, I was completely bamboozled by that last fight. I never stopped once to think, hey, wait, where's the Gnar? And it turns out that the answer was taking the entirety of TDB's base. So that's madness for sure. I really, really loved what we saw here. TD Bank, I do think we saw some shining bright spots for them in terms of their overarching defensive game plan come through, but it wasn't necessarily enough to push back against the unstoppable force of Ronin. And so my question to you right now, Eternal, is what do you think TDB needs to do in game number 2 to try to get back into the series?
I think for them to get in the game number 2 is I think Seraphine has to be a pick ban in the situation.
Uh,
Granted, you're not blue side anymore. You're red side. So you just saw they picked Zeri Seraphine bot lane. They could do another Sivir, make that a first pick or have Seraphine first pick. So I think you either take that away or hope they don't first pick it. And well, we've seen how well they played it. So I feel like in this situation, take that away. They're probably going to pick either Zeri or Seraphine. I don't think that was an issue. I think you're fine playing Sivir. But I think from the side of TDB, they just had to slow it down. The play that completely cracked it wide open was the 4 kills bot lane, Mundo burning teleport. They lost 2 towers. That was essentially a 4K gold swing, completely in the favor of Ronin. I think if you don't have that, yeah, Trundle had a couple kills, but you negate that off the board. They were fine scaling. They weren't that far behind. Um, so yeah, they didn't play bad initially. initially, they just had tiny little mistakes that ballooned into these giant problems they couldn't contain.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just so hard to threat assess sometimes, that's for sure. Who knew that the Trundle was going to get a double kill and then get another kill and just kind of snowball from there? Who knew that Kaichol was unable to do anything with that teleport bot side? In fact, they just gave another kill over to Usain. I mean, those kind
Yep.
of calls and those things just come with time, come with experience. And hey, the good thing about this being a best of 3 is that you have at least one more game with which to get a better grasp of these kinds of dynamics in a game. So I think that there's definitely a chance for TD Bank to come back here, but they have a lot on their plate in order to do so, because Ronin, I think, made an emphatic statement as to why they're a top contender so far in the BOL Gold League. With that in mind, we're going to throw it to a quick break, but when we return, we're going to start with that draft for game number 2. Don't go anywhere. I'm sure you want to see more of these teams as much as I do. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League. It is week 2 of the Gold Division, and we got some interesting things already popping off here in this matchup between House of Ronin and TD Bank. House of Ronin tried to speed run their way through the series, it feels like Eternal. Absolutely dominant 25-minute game coming out from them. They got their jungler ahead early, and they had some incredible macro play there at the very end to continue to pressure the enemy Nexus down. And so the question is, TD Bank, going back to the drawing board, what do they have to do in this upcoming draft?
I think upcoming draft is, well, you should have something that's a little stronger bot lane. As like I said, final the Sivir, but I think that Sonar's a little bit too slow. We kind of talked about it on the off break. Compared to Seraphine, Seraphine offers a lot more utility than Sona does. For your mid laner, I think Malzahar is fine, but the biggest problem was they didn't have much initiation outside of Volibear. It was everyone, like the game plan essentially is everyone speed up, Volibear go in, hopefully we can find a pick Volibear, have Malzahar locked on another person, and then just have Mundo run around. Great in theory, but in application it doesn't exactly work, especially if you have a Nard jumping on top of you and you have a Trundle in your face. You need a peel for them. And if you don't have much CC to peel for them, well, they're just going to completely run rampant and just beat the hell out of your Sivir and out of your bot lane, as we saw constantly happening in the mid game. So they need more engaged tools from the side of TDB.
Yeah, I would totally agree, and I think that one place that I want to focus is in that support role. I don't think you could go for that Sona again, Eternal.
I don't think you
It
do.
is
No.
good in theory, kind of what we were talking about before regarding their overarching plan of just scaling up. Sona can obviously become a monster and really enable some hyper carries in the late game, but Ronin is not going to give you the opportunity to get to that late game. They want the game over at that 25-minute point. They got something to watch on Netflix after this, so that's something you got to watch out for. And I think that given the fact that you had this dearth of engage potential in this previous match, it's time to go for something maybe like a Nautilus, something that can actually get in there and disrupt the game plan that Ronin's trying to bring to the table.
Yeah, exactly. You need something in there to create disruption, right? You can't like we mentioned, you know, if you're just running straight at me and I have a bunch of tools to slow you down, well, I'm gonna use them. Everything I have is in my kit. If you're just going straight at me, hit the go button, come at me as hard as you can. Well, if I have a wall, you don't exactly reach me, and if I have two walls, you definitely don't reach me. So I think if they had something like a Leona, a Nautilus, maybe a Pike, right? Because I mean, we saw Sona Rome. If they would do something like a Pike, a Pantheon, some type of heavy kill potential CC support champion, it doesn't matter. I mean, we've seen it in LCK. It could be Vi, for instance. Something unorthodox. I mean, it can happen. Something unorthodox. Now you're putting pressure on them to respond in a situation rather than just you run at me, I hit a button. Okay, I just right click backwards and then your engage is done.
Oh yeah, for sure. A lot of things to watch out for. One thing that I want to talk about before we move on into the draft is that we got a little bit of a schedule update for you all. We don't only have this one streamed match going on. We got a lot else popping off in this world. And so looking over here at the schedule, we see what other matches are kind of on the board and who's been popping off tonight for sure. There's already some familiar faces coming away with victories. The one thing I do want to note here is that team I was talking about earlier, the Copies, who did not get that first week done because they had to buy for themselves, have gone up 1-0 versus Conduit so far, and they're looking to cleanly close things out, excuse me, here with a 2-0 to start off their inauguration here in the Blue Otter League Gold Division.
And I mean, that's a big statement too, right? Usually with a lot of bye teams, you're not unsure how they're going to be. Great, they have an extra week off. Okay, either they're going to come in and they're going to fall flat because they haven't actually played a game, or if you come out and you actually come out strong and win a game, well, then that kind of puts the idea of, oh, this might actually be another contender for the division. This could be a playoff caliber team. So regardless of how the series plays out, the fact they've already taken a game should prove to not only the division but the overall league that they are a strong team and they have potential. So I definitely think they're another team to watch out for.
Yeah, another one in the Noxus group here. We have TD Solar winning against NFE Gold. TD Solar going up 2-0 in their first week as well. There's someone else who kind of wants one of these uninterrupted perfect records going through into week number 2. And hey, if it is the case that TD Solar will be matching up against House of Ronin soon, they might have to get revenge for their sister team in TD Bank.
Man.
That's something to watch out for. Got more than one TD competitor here in that side of things. Elsewhere, we also got the Demacia and the Ionia divisions. Lots of things happening there as well. A Forgotten Kingdom and CN Crawdaddies haven't played quite yet, but Tenebris Esports Zycron and Conduit Esports Goblins have been going at it. Conduit coming out on top in that one.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised, at least for the other Conduit team. I thought, maybe the team would kind of come bounce back a little bit. Zenith Esports kind of take a game away from it. So either some of the scrims, because obviously if you have two sister teams, you kind of scrim each other every now and then, especially if you're in the same elo. This one for gold. So either the scrims have been paying off well, or the communication has gotten better. So that's kind of interesting over the Demacian group. And the other one too is some familiar faces over in the Ionian with GSG and Little Monkeys. Little Monkeys has been one of those teams that it's kind of been a fan favorite, right? Everyone kind of see the make the playoffs. So the fact that they're starting out this week too with a 1-0, probably it probably feels good if you're a fan of the Monkeys right now.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm a fan of the Monkeys as well. Not necessarily because I have any allegiance or biases towards team here in the Gold Division, but because they were the only team in Week 1 to break the curse of getting 0-2'd or 2-0'd. They went 1-2 there, and ultimately lost that matchup. But for the love of God, at least they were a team who managed to bring it to a decisive game at 3. We had a little bit of silver scrapes going on for once. I hope that dynamic doesn't continue here in BOL. But stomps are also sometimes fun to watch. And speaking of stomps, we should be getting into the draft here in just a little bit between House of Ronin and TD Bank. We'll see if TD Bank can come back from that first stomp that we saw and try to make things a little bit more even here in match number 2. And we already speculated a little bit about what Bank has to do to come back and get into this series in a good way, Eternal. But what does House of Ronin want to do to twist the knife and try to get a 2-0 here?
I think if you want to twist the knife, honestly, it's probably gonna sound really crazy. I think you can probably pull off a Draven Eco bot lane. I know that's probably way out there. I know it sounds out there, but Nico has a large amount of high damage. If you land a root, especially with Draven at level 2, they're just dead. You're not gonna get away from him. And then you just keep stacking. Heavy Dragon come down maybe once every 5 minutes. Just say hi, a little wave, maybe drop some candy off. Say, all right, you're my favorite. Walk back to the river, get some vision for him. And they like to play aggressive, right? We've seen him play aggressive. Draven is definitely one of those early game AD carries that if you can manage the early game well, and he doesn't fall behind and can cash in the stacks, he snowballs hard. And it is extremely difficult to try and stop a 3-kill Draven at like 10 minutes, let's say.
Hang on, do you know if anyone on Ronin plays Nico support, or is this just what you would like to see in Christmas Land?
In a far-off fantasy in an alternate dimension, they have a pocket pick that we're not aware of.
All right. I mean, if we're going by that logic, my dream bot lane is Heimerdinger Talia, where you can Talia W people back into Heimer turrets. That's the big brain play right there.
Well, that's disgusting. I don't ever want to hear that again. The other idea is Cassiopeia Gnarlus bot lane.
Oh, there we go.
Have
you ever played Pantheon Jax bot lane, by the way, where you Pantheon W someone and then you get Jax to Q them? Beautiful, beautiful plays. All right, we are going to take a little bit of a break here. We got some issues going on with the draft, and we'll be right back. But I think you guys have heard enough of our crazy bronze level picks. So we're going to give your ears a little bit of rest, but don't worry. Soon we will return, and we'll be in with the draft between House of Ronin and TD Bank. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League Gold Division. We are in between games here in this matchup between Ronin and TD Bank. And so far, we've had some interesting things to talk about while we're waiting out for this little draft shenanigan to finally get itself sorted. We're going to be getting into that very shortly, don't you worry. But yeah, kind of given this time to reflect here, Eternal, I'm looking at the second game, and I think TD can do this. I think TD Bank can just refocus, and given what we saw regarding what their support plays, what their top lane plays, you can go for some kind of engage-oriented top laner, get something that has pick potential like a Lux Morgana in that bot side of the map, and you're cooking from there. You just need a bit more CC than what we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I looked at some of the match history. So, the support for Ronin plays a lot of enchanters, so whether that be Lux, like you mentioned, Morgana, Rana Glass, and as we saw in the last game, Seraphine. And typically, their engage tools come out of either their mid or their top lane. They do have some junglers, they have some gank potential, but there was a Yone mid, there was a Fiora top, there was a Wukong top as well. So it seems like the top laner for Ronin likes to go in as we see the first bans. I can't blame TD Bank. They didn't want to deal anything with Zeri Seraphine. I can't blame them, and they immediately took Trundle off the map. Whereas Ronin still has the same three first bans they had in game one, being the Karma, Kane, and the Yubi.
And here's the thing, while I do like the fact that TD Bank is relatively responsive to what happened in game number 1 and they're taking away 3 of those key players, the fact of the matter is that House of Ronin has other things that they're comfortable on. There's things
Yeah.
that was banned in game number 1 that aren't going to be banned here, and already we see that Jhin coming out, and it's going to be backed up by a Lulu.
I kind of like it. I'm kind of so if that lets me know Jin Lulu, I'm curious if she's gonna go Shrellies, which would make the most sense. So they can kind of get him out of sticky situations. So then either their mid laner or their top laner is going to be unengaged. Wukong is still open. Yone is still up. I mean, if they need to go tank again, they could go Narasana. Is Diana going to be okay? She's going jungle, so that does leave the Yone Yasuo if they want to do some type of knockup comp. As we do see your Ornn coming in, possibly, and that is being locked in for the side of TD Bank, but. Still, Zach and Tristana are not picks to scoff at either, especially the way it was Zach passive.
I love Diana. I think that Diana is such a fantastic choice here because they combo really, really well with Lulu ult. You can dive on in, get everyone caught on up in an R of your own, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're 10 feet tall and just knocking everyone into the air, right? On the side of TD Bank, I also like what they're going for because those woes that we had regarding engage tools, regarding CC, all out the window. You got Tristana to hop in on people. You got Zac to slingshot yourself over walls, and you got Ornn with Call of the Forge God, as well as that inevitable scaling that I've been talking about.
Also, they did. I understand that banning the Fiora perfectly fine. Banning the Victor, I didn't think Victor was too much of a problem from the game one. Granted, they have a lot of wave clear and some zone control. But I hate to say it, there's still a Wukong, there's still a Yone, there's still a Yasuo if they play it. They still have plenty of options to go in. We do see Renata Glass be picked up for side TD Bank. So now I'm curious what Ronin wants to do for these next two picks.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like TD Bank is probably listening in on this cast a little bit, Eternal, because this is exactly the kind of composition that I was looking forward to coming out from them. Really happy to see what they're going for here. And as you said, it's going to be interesting to see how House of Ronin is going to react to these selections. Renata, I think, very solid up against this team composition that House is bringing to the table. Ooh, but the Yasuo pick coming on in, once again, doubling up with a lot of the utility that Lulu and Diana both bring to the table. You got a Sejuani layered on top of that all.
I mean, I said there was a Yasuo on the board potentially for a knockup composition. I saw Diana. I was like, oh, Diana Yasuo is one of the deadliest ones just because of how fast she gets to pop that off on top of Yasuo. And if you can manage to lock up 2-3 people, especially in a jungle pre-skirmish for an objective, or her just coming out of flank, you don't see her. She flashes over, engages, locks everyone inside a nice little bubble, and then you have a Sejuani to boot. Like, that is the comp from Ronin in the last 3 picks is outstanding. I do like TD Bank's comp as well. I am not going to disappoint that just because you have plenty of engage tools with Zac and Ornn. And at least you have Renata Glass to essentially, if you see Diana trying to come in, hopefully get your ultimate off. The caveat is it does come out very slow. So now is it going to be a timing question? Does the ult hit first, or does the Diana Yasuo basically wipe out your front line before that ult even hits them?
Yeah, I think that vision control is going to be a huge deal in order to make sure that you just have a good sense of where the enemy team is and how you can position against them, so you can get things like the Renata Glass Isle takeover coming out before you're kind of, dove onto the backline as you're talking about their Eternal. That's going to be a dynamic I really want to watch out for here. But in general, I know that House of Ronin has definitely drafted very astutely, but I do have to give my applause over to TD Bank for this one. I feel like
Yes.
they are playing without fear. They are not shaken by that first game, and they're going to take the gloves off and go for something that is far more aggressive, far more oriented to actually taking these fights early. But this isn't even to say that they are wanting for late game power. Ornn, as I said before, distributing those ornaments does such a great job of just keeping players in the game. Tristana can just grow up into an absolute monster, especially if they get a bunch of momentum going on into that lane. And I mean, Swain, absolutely unkillable in certain situations when he's popped that ult. It's just going to be a matter of staying stable through that early game, or riding out the doldrums that House of Ronin is undoubtedly going to bring to the table with their incredibly sharp early game play. And from there, you just got to forge your path forward and just go for a win later on. So a lot to watch out for sure, coming through for that side. For House of Ronin, that Yasuo pick that you've been talking about, Eternal, coming out here is something I'm personally really excited for. I love the skill expression that this champion brings to the table, and watching it in gold in particular, I think is a
Oh
delight.
man, it's always good to watch Yasuo players in gold. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
for
it.
sure, for sure. Yeah, and it also just provides another target for Lulu to really support. I do think you are sacrificing quite a bit of the priority and dominance that House of Ronin is known for there in that bot lane early. But Lulu does provide a lot of D push against stuff like the Tristana, because why rocket jump in if you're immediately going to be turned into a two-tailed squirrel, right?
Right, yeah. So she can't jump in these fights. It's going to be all based on the Zac or Ornn, or if Renata can essentially land a skill shot and hook someone in. Uh, Based on the compositions, I do think TD Bank wins extended team fights just because of the Swain pickup, right? I mean, he's just constantly going to be stealing souls, re-healing up. Um, Burst potential is on the side of Ronin. Diana Yasuo, enough said. You still have a Sejuani that can come and knock people up. Based on comps, I really want TD Bank to win. I still think Ronin has the advantage going into game 2. But I'm still happy TD Bank, as you mentioned before, is not afraid to do this comp. They are not afraid to go toe-to-toe with them. And they're saying, hey, game 1, we had some issues. However, we know we can beat you, so let's draft a composition that reflects that.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I will say is that if House of Ronin wants to win early, TD Bank is giving them the opportunity to do so if you take bad fights. Because you not only have the ability to start fights for TD Bank, but you have the ability to feed everyone on House of Ronin in a flash, because you're so oriented towards going in, right? If you get caught up in the backline as Zac, if you rocket jump into the wrong people as Tristana, they're just dead, basically. I guess you may get a little bit of a reprieve on life with the Renata Glass W, but that is not enough if you are getting to a situation like last game where that Trundle just became absolutely monstrous for sure.
We call that an Eddy. I don't know if you've ever heard of the player that it was in BOL and Risen called Rivered or not. Might have been familiar, but he doesn't play Tristana anymore because, myself included, ragged on him. He has jumped multiple times in a 1v4 or 1v5 as Tristana and just immediately died. Why not objective was up. So we just call that pulling an Eddy now, or an Eddy play. Eddy, if you're listening, I really hope you are, because I'm never gonna forgive you for that, as I shouldn't. But yeah, no, she just can't jump in too early, because as you mentioned, Polymorph, Sejuani knockup, Yasuo, Diana, it doesn't matter who is there. She jumps in at the wrong time, she is gone. And if you look at the way TD Bank, that is a large amount of their damage.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of things to watch out for. I think that there's a lot of ability to just express the real power level of these teams here. No more stomps, no more craziness, no more one troll getting fed and that feeding out the entire rest of the game. I think that we're going to be having a real banger of a match here. TD Bank looking to bring it to 1-1 and end the curse, get the first victory on the board, and hey, maybe take the whole thing home with a game number 3. House of Ronin, meanwhile, continuing that streak, trying to keep it alive here with a flat 2-0. We're going to throw it to a quick break to wait out that spectator delay, but when we return, it's going to be that decisive game number 2 on the books.
Minions have spawned. down. Triple kill. Minions have spawned. First blood. Shut down.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League. It is week 2 of the Gold League, and we are here with the streamed match between House of Ronin and TD Bank. TD Bank, have quite the hill ahead of them to climb. House of Ronin had a very dominant game, number one, but honestly, I think that they're relatively unperturbed about it because Eternal, what I saw in this last draft is TD Bank saying the gloves are coming off, and this is how we are going to make a statement. We're going to play aggressively, and we're going to match what Ronin is bringing to the table. And honestly, I have nothing but respect for that.
Yeah, like I said, that's why I'm not going to talk anything negative about their comp or what they're trying to achieve. Like they realize like, okay, that first game didn't exactly work out. We didn't really have much tools to engage. We're going to address that here. And hey, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That just gives us something to improve on. Watch the VOD, watch how the gameplay happens, and improve on it next week. Because honestly, it takes a lot of guts to say we can draft the same comp that you guys drafted in game one, slightly different champions, but the right idea, and come back strong. And if we beat you game two, that means we know we can beat you in game three.
Yeah, for sure. Because in the last game, there's plausible deniability where you say, hey, we had a scaling comp, we got behind early, and honestly, the lead just became too much for us to actually come through and have a shot at winning from it. Here, you are matching up 1-to-1, and you're trying to win in the same time period in which House of Ronin is also trying to win. And if you can take this game down and take it to a game number 3, that does a lot more mental damage to Ronin than what TD Bank experienced in game number 1. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes from this game. So far, it looks like we're getting a pretty similar dynamic to what happened in game number 1. It's going to be a bot side start for Ronin, and meanwhile, TD Bank starting topside, gonna give a slightly more priority over to TDK and AP Buggy.
Yeah, I think it was a little interesting just because the bot lane didn't show for TD, but Ornn showed up to the wave late. So that might give a little bit of indication. Also, Ornn did. I think he lost a little bit of health from red taking one shot. So they should have an idea that Zach started top side. I'm not sure if they're tracking that as closely, but that's just a little bit of indication. But yeah, it should come bot side. And the one thing I will mention is we didn't have any heal in game one. Zeri took Ghost, but in this time, Jhin actually took heal and Lulu took Ignite, and there is still no heal from the side of TDB as they might go in, gets the good route. Good route, and yeah, Lulu took Exhaust, but yeah, no heal from the side of TD.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that this is a game where you really just need to take Exhaust as a support. I mean, it's so darn good against that Lulu. The combination of W onto the Tristana, as we just saw right there, plus Exhaust basically will shut down any kind of engage that Red Squad wants to go for. And so with that in mind, Immeasurable and Impact Lunar have the ability to not necessarily play with priority, but play with confidence. And that's really valuable when you have a support that does so well, helping people scale into that late game and allow for them to become hyper carries.
Yeah, no, that's just unfortunately a bad trade. I mean, he tried to jump in. We talked about Tristan needs to be right position. He jumped in at that was the wrong time. Took a large amount of punishment from that.
Mhm.
Luckily, didn't die. But again, I mentioned they didn't have heal, so they're relying on a lot of the run out of glass shields. And Zach is bot sides. He does have prio. Diana is looking for this top side gank.
Yeah, and honestly, having a
Oh, he
red side
missed it.
start with Convey, I think is really valuable. That being said, top side, we got something brewing with the jungler up here. Usain still at full health, trying to rush down onto Kythal, but the Ignite not enough to make it through the health of the Forge God. And so with that in mind, it is going to be some amount of priority given over to Sejuani, but ultimately Diana not able to finish anything off. That being said, that's not the case for the bot side of the map. Measurables all alone now. Impact Lunar has already been taken out after using both of their summoner spells. He's reloading, trying to rush down onto AP Buggy, but he is not aware of the reset coming through from Convey. He's going to be able to get him smacked up against one of the minions. No big follow-up, though, in kind, so Measurable going to stay alive, but First Blood has been claimed by TD Bank.
Well played, honestly, by the side. They realized Lulu was a little bit out of position, went in. We talked about the fact that Zach was pathing top to bottom, has the first gank. That one goes off. But the one thing we'll mention is while the gank top side didn't work, Hythal did had to burn his flash. And if we look at Diana, she is on Krugs at the moment, so I would not be surprised if she swings around and gets a kill on the Zorn.
Yeah, for sure. House of Ronin making the best out of what they've been given. because Hussein saw so much action bot side, they are going to stay top, go for that little bit of vertical jungling, and it's going to come back around to revisit Kaithal. That being said, Ronin Seiya is in a little bit of trouble here, going to force the flash out of Hussein just to make sure that they catch up to the Forge God, going to continue to stay on top of the Ornn. The knockup is coming through, though. Ronin not really able to walk up to help assist in this attempt at a kill, and look at this, Hussein too
That's
slowed up. They aren't
crazy.
able to kill Kaithal, and so
Oh.
now you've pulled so much pressure up topside without anything to show for it. House of Ronin on their back foot here, down quite a bit of gold.
Quite a bit of gold, and that Swain, great job with awareness, probably calling for help, so good communication. That slow, while it didn't look that impactful, slow Diana just enough that she cannot get in there for one or two more autos because she burned flash on the previous exchange trying to get him down. And yeah, that's just, I mean, yes, she is ahead in CS in the jungle. That's fine. She was on the map more. But again, you look at that gold 800 being over the pocket for TD, and you want to talk about bounce back for game two. That's exactly what you need and what you want from your team going into this.
Yeah, unperturbed for sure. TD Bank playing so tightly right there. I didn't even realize that that was Swain W, I gotta say. I thought that was some Ornn ability that was missing out of my mind, but like, yeah, I guess that skin just makes it a completely different shade. So I was expecting something a little bit more shadowy coming out of the Swain.
No, no worries. I feel bad because I actually forget what the spells are called. But no, it's just, I mean, that's very smart. Yasuo does have priority, but he should be spotted out by the scrying plant that Zach hit, so they are aware that Yasuo is there, so the bot lane will be safe. And yeah, I thought for sure the top was just going to be kind of this island. I did not expect this much attention from the side of Ronin. But again, this much attention, you look, Sejuani went call, but she's still down 13 CS in that lane.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
definitely
that was
troublesome. Yeah, Kaithal, though, gonna get stunned up, won't be able to reactivate Call of the Forge God. Ronin down a level, but because of that, they're given a bit of reprieve. Will be able to receive this wave at tower. Hussein wants more action, though, has that ultimate on themselves. They're gonna come on in, and will this finally be the death knell for the Forge God? He is stunned all up, a bit more health this time onto Ronin Seiya. Swaying W not going to hit their mark this time around, and the kill will be going over to the Boar Rider.
And yeah, and that was just great awareness from Hussein on this Diana, knowing, hey, I've been here twice. I know you don't have much up. You just got done burning Call of the Forge God, so you don't have a way to slow me and disengage. Great patience, knowing in there, and they will get a dragon for this, so that's still a good trade. But the other problem is, you look at the top side of the map, Diana is taking that red and possibly his Krugs, so that is exactly what you want to do as a jungler, is if you know they are making one play on the other side of the map, you want to make a play on the other side of the map, because you do want to punish him for making that decision. And in such, she is putting her head pretty nicely so far in the jungle.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at that even gold that has kind of come back for House of Ronin, you got to think about where it is. And obviously it's on Sejuani because of that kill, but it's definitely on Hussein as well, who's just popped off in terms of CS as a jungler. And we know how scary this player can be when they have a lead like this.
Yeah, I mean, we saw game one where the unkillable Trundle basically just a raid boss going in and slapping everyone as he pleases. And while Trundle is not Diana, she still has plenty of engaged tools. We kind of see the action go down mid, and not too much going on. No junglers paying attention to the mid lane just yet. But since Diana does have access to her ultimate, I would not expect if she possibly does a red to Krugs to Raptors up, or start on red and then find out what the wave states are and then rotate over.
Yeah, Hussein has a lot of options here. They can obviously clear through bot side, but the Rift Herald is also up, and Convey has been doing a really good job of focusing objectives. So I would imagine that after these few camps are knocked out, that the Diana is probably going to be taking a look-see across these lanes, and also keeping in mind that getting Shelly, and this time actually grabbing the eye of the Herald, would be really nice. Oh, look at this. Convey going for the invade onto the red buff, utilizing Elastic Slingshot. Hussein coming around, gonna pop ultimate down onto AP Buggy, immediately bursts it out. TDK now in a little bit of trouble as well. Will have to use their ultimate to blow back Hussein, but it does not matter. The moon-shaped skill shot is going to be enough to put the Tristana into the dirt. Convey has to turn this invade into the only thing that TD Bank is benefiting from bot side.
And they felt like they were safe because Zach was there, but I don't want to talk too much because he definitely has an angle on this Yasuo if he wants to go in.
Yeah, for sure. Inferno's going to try to keep Rimhang close, and their enemies closer. Kunvei going to be able to jump on in. The knockup coming through for Rimhang, but Hussein is right here to try to save their mid laner. Impact Looter also coming on up with a clutch ultimate. That being said, Yasuo is going to go down here. Hussein is in a little bit of trouble, but it's going to get some healing off that kill on the Swain. And the question is, can they pop Zap and AP Buggy now? Convey has the W put onto them. They're going to run back in, go for that desperation play to get the revive going. Is not going to happen. Ronin Seiya now has been spending so much time moving through river. They finally will arrive to the rest of this fight. TDK not able to hop on out. They're going to be taken out as well. The double. And honestly, this seems like a repeat of game number 1, unfortunately. Eternal, I think House of Ronin just had a game-winning fight.
Yeah, that's one of those plays that kind of breaks open the game as we saw. They had 4 kills bot lane, that's essentially 4 kills mid. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'll try and do it based on what occurred. So, unfortunately, Yasuo engages on Swain. Swain has to then get bailed out by Zac. Yes, they do get the kill, but Diana still does a large amount of damage. Call the Forge God will miss there. Diana is essentially going on top of him. Lulu shows up at the right time with a polymorph, so Zac isn't able to get the pullback as needed. He goes out. Yes, Renata does a little bit of delay, but by doing the delay, Tristana comes in, and the reason why Tristana got caught up is she had a nice little bomb on top of Usain, but the heal from the Jhin saved her enough that it did not kill her, so she was not able to get the reset. And, well, that's a nice 4 kills over the side of Ronin.
Yeah, for sure. Ultimate going to be popped here by Usain, but
Ooh.
both of the Blue Squad members are low here. Convey trying to doing what they can to stay on alive. They don't have the passive up, but they don't need it. It's going to be Diana shut down, and another kill coming through. Rimhang now in the area, but it's going to be a 1v3, and Furnos is going to mirror his path up top. And now Yasuo realizes that he has to do or die in this situation, trying to get a kill down, but look at how much Convey is able to heal back up. And I talked about a winning fight, but this time around, TD Bank gonna answer back in strong, stunning fashion.
Just like an omelet, it gets flipped, and that's exactly how you want to bounce back. We talked about they didn't have engage in game 1. We felt like that was the main reason. And in game 2, I think our theory has been proven correct. Convey on the Zac re-engage. You have Ornn re-engage. You have Swain that roams up and is able to clean up a 3-4-0 for the side of TDB. And, well, Sejuani just lost out on a wave in 2 plates, so now she's falling behind. Zac, yes, made a small misplay mid, but he's able to get the shutdown on the Diana. And Yasuo has not been this powerhouse we've seen early as they start the dragon, but it's a 3v3, and Swain does have prio mid.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to try to venture down here.
Just
here's the approach of the entire team.
Yeah.
Now Convey gonna hop right on into this one. The Dragons hasn't been taken yet, and so far it looks like it's going pretty darn well for TD Bank. Hostile takeover coming through. Not exactly going to land on much, but Zac is still going to be able to claim up the dragon here. His passive is going to be popped, and he will eventually fall down. But it's a 1-for-2 so far. As Call the Forge is going to land onto the remaining members of House of Ronin and make that a 1-for-4. I have not seen that kind of gold lead yet for TD Bank in this series, and Eternal, they are on top of it now.
And that's exactly what was missing. Where was the engage? Who was going in? All you had was a Volibear and movement speed. And now that Sejuani might be caught out, she should live from this. They won't have enough to pull her back. But again, you have Convey going in. Great steal by him, by the way. And the main thing was, Ronin Seiya was top lane with no TP. Ornn recognizes that Dragon is up. They have not only numbers advantage, but they have plenty of tools to go in. Go in to get the Dragon. Yes, Zac dies, but that's a trade you will take any day. I will sacrifice my life for a Dragon and let my team get 4 kills? Absolutely. And now you look at the carry, Infernos on this swing, 3-1-3. And at 14 minutes, Ronin is up almost 3k gold.
Yeah, and look at this. They're going to try to make it more. Ronin Seiya going to have to walk back after Elastic Slingshot comes down from Convey. And now Hussein's in the area for the 2v2. Kaito going to get caught out by Sejuani ult here, but Convey doing so much as shield for their laner. Hussein finally going to be able to pick up the kill, but it's at least 1 trade back due to the tower shots and the control that the Zac brings to the table. And Ronin doesn't have enough health to work up against this enemy jungler. That being being said, Yasuo in the area as well. Ronin going to pass under the elastic slingshot, and now Inferno's popping ultimate of their own is going to allow Convey to stay alive, and wow, another huge turnaround of a fight for TD Bank.
I'm so happy. So I get to talk about this. I mean, the fact that hold on, I got another fight. Wow, like,
Yeah, sorry about that. TDK in a little bit of trouble. He hopped on in, but immediately got polymorphed, and now Measurable is massive, both in terms of power and size, as Lulu ult is going to allow for him to chase down the double-double. Still some bright spots for House of Ronin, but yeah, Eternal, take it away for that talk about the topside fight.
all right, so I'm really happy to talk about this. I play Zac. So basically, in that situation, your main goal with Zac is where are my bloblets? How much health do I get? How much can I just slow him and knock him away? Get my health bloblets, pull it back. And because of the fact that you have Swain up there, he is able to just barely do enough damage and sustain himself that reinforcements arrive. He was able to pull back Sejuani and Diana under that tower, gets the return kill for Kaithal. Thank you for your service. You will not be forgotten. Takes down Diana, takes down Sejuani, and then because Yasuo's up there, remember he's a 1-3 Yasuo. He doesn't have the items like the Swain does. Comes in there, kills him, and that is a 3-for-1 for the side of TDB.
Oh man, and Hussein's in a lot of trouble. Topside taking another 2v1. The knockout from Call of the Forge God is enough to let for Convey to channel that slingshot, get on in there, and put another kill on the board for TD Bank.
Yeah, and again, well, are they? No, okay. I wasn't sure if they were going to stick around or not. They're just getting vision control. But again, that's the thing. Zac has one of the longest engages in the game. Yes, I know you have Call of the Forge God, and you have a couple other ones, we've seen from the one already. But the problem is you're coming from angles as Zac that you're not going to suspect. Kind of how Fiddlesticks works as well. You're in the brush, you stay hidden, and by the time you pop out, unless you have some way to reposition yourself or your summoner spell flashes up, you're essentially a sitting target. And if you have another champion, let's just see on top of it, you're pretty much
Ronin
dead.
Singh gonna go on in
here.
Inferno's pretty low. Wow, great poke coming through from the Sejuani. Sorry to interrupt, Eternal, but we almost had a dead Birdman on our hands.
Yeah, he still has his ultimate. I think he's trying to bait it. I think he wants to bait Sejuani to go in, pop his ultimate, transform, and yeah, that's essentially what he wants to do.
Yeah, now Ronin's in a lot of trouble. All it takes is a W, or excuse me, an E, and Infernos has claimed themselves yet another kill. And that stark contrast in that mid lane is where a lot of this gold is centralized for sure, Eternal. When you look at that lead, I think that's basically all on the shoulders of the 6-1 Swain.
Yeah, and much like a Fed Trundle, a Fed Swain is even annoying to deal with. And you see that Rylai's Crystal Scepter coming in. So not only is he going to drain you with Liandry's, he's going to do burn over time, heal himself, but also slow you. Good luck getting away. You just want him to go away. And the only one that's capable of making him go away is Sejuani and possibly the Yasuo with some disengage tools. But this is another dragon. Ornn does have TP for this, but Sejuani is here already as we see the TP coming down.
Yeah, for sure, and Convey trying to go in with the engage will be able to get one of their arms down onto Hussein, but they're able to kite their way out of there. Ronin from the far side is going to force everyone through this choke point, and that means Hussein's got a huge ultimate to go on in with. That being said, TDK is there to answer back with a lot of damage, and Infernos is just too big to deal with the double-double so far, where the Swain, Impact, Lunar, and Measurable, the only ones left alive, trying to kite their way back down towards their bot side tower, and that is their only hope to stay alive. The triple kill coming through for Infernos.
Go for it. Oh, they're not gonna go for it. I was like, you guys can get an ace here. But honestly, they just don't have the damage. That was a great engage by Hussein on Diana, letting Rimhang come in with the Yasuo. But Yasuo just does not have the items, unlike the Swain. And because of how tanky this Ornn and Zac are, they do not go down easy. But at the end of the day, where was TDK PBT? Oh, you're allowing a Tristana for free to auto you to death and throw bombs on top of your head. So another fight goes completely awry. A 4-0 and a dragon over the side of TB, and they want to say, we are here, we want to force this game 3, we want to take that challenge.
Wow, and so scary now for House of Ronin, because like you said, that was an ideal engage situation and it just all went down the drain. And so now you're in that kind of damning situation that TD Bank was experiencing in game number 1. What do you do against these champions that are so monstrous? They're just going to continue to put on the hurt, and now they can kind of do whatever they want, because even in the best case scenario, you are barely surviving, even if.
Yeah, at this point, you kind of have to look for picks. I think your best target is probably the Swain. Granted, he is going to be a giant pain to take down, or at the very least make him burn that stopwatch. But that's the way you come in, right? You see 700 gold on that Swain. You got to look for pick potential. Try and do it numbers advantage. Kind of how we talk about game one. You're not going to win the even fights. You don't have the items. You're far behind in tempo as well as gold advantage. So yeah, pick potential and just look for towers that are low. You see that tier 1 top side that's pretty much going to fall. I would honestly send 3 or 4 people topside, crack that, put some type of gold with the bounty system in your pocket.
Yeah, and another thing you gotta watch out for here is the amount of control that TD Bank is able to get due to the power level their champions are currently operating at. They're all in that topside river. They got full control over that Baron, and so one pick can spell a doom for the laning potential of House of Ronin.
Yeah, and if you look, that is a very, very dark jungle for the side of House of Ronin, and that's terrifying. I mean, if they really wanted to, they could just start this Baron up at any time. I would obviously wait for the Swain TP to come available, so that way he can tell TP in the pit. But this is their Baron. They can start this up at any time, and House of Ronin has zero clue that they would be doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And look at this rim hang already
Wow.
so low. Was that the proc on? No, I thought that was a proc on shield
That's
though, but then I realized he's only on Bork because, like you said, very behind currently in terms of items. And so with that in mind, rim hang cannot hang with the enemy mid laner. And so that continued split is going to continue on here. Ronin Seiya going to come into the area to try to D-push at least a little bit. But the 3-level gap means that right now, Swain can basically stay in lane for as long as they so desire. That being said, Ronin wants to go in on this one, get at least a little bit of a trade down, and hopefully delay for the rest of the team to come in with the collapse. There's the stun up, big root from far away due to measurable, and already going to have to go golden here. Inferno's going to only want a kill out of this. They can't get much more, and won't even be able to grab that. So that is a crucial and critical shutdown. The question is, can TD Bank answer back by getting Baron for Swain's troubles?
Potentially, but you still have a Yasuo Diana engaged.
Yeah,
there it goes.
He's gonna go on in, popping ultimate deep into the Baron pit. Renata Glass going to channel ultimate though, and that's gonna cause quite a bit of discord as Diana can only flash away, and is also going to be Sejuani falling there. And I guess that they wanted to just give more up because it's going to be Rim Hang, the third one, knocked out. Measurable, going to do what they can, ulting from far away with that curtain call, but there's enough health to share between the remaining members of TD Bank.
I mean, they should be able to take this debut back up. I think Usain and Rimhang, they pulled the trigger too early. I mean, that Baron was still around like 8-9k. That was too early. Let them tank it up, play a little dance, right? Little limbo dance, if you will. Try and not get hit by Call of the Forge God or any type of engage that Convey does. I mean, you killed Swain. That was a big item, a big champion off the board. Granted, Jin and Lulu were both stuck down there, so they couldn't rotate up, so you still had a numbers disadvantage. But no, I think they're just a little too early, but still. Free Baron, another 3 kills for the side of TDB, and while Swain did die, you're looking pretty happy with this Infernal Soul coming up in 37 seconds.
Yeah, and we saw this exact situation play out in game number 1 with the names Reverse Eternal, where ultimately TD Bank decided to go in, tried to stop the soul from being taken, and they got wiped and lost the game off of it, basically. And so will that repeat itself now with House of Ronin? Will they try to give it up, or maybe will they go in and actually get the Dream Engage and get their names onto the board?
I just think with the way the Yasuo is 1-6 and how he doesn't even have a mythic yet, 24 minutes in the game almost, I don't think you take this fight. Like we said, they could prove us wrong. They could try and look for an engage, but honestly at this point, just play for Soul. How fast the Dragon's up, Soul will be up. Just stall it out and then look for probably a Miracle Steal or some type of flank engage, because at this point, you have way too much to lose and barely anything to gain for this Dragon.
Yeah, for sure. Ronin Seiya is going to need some help on that top side as well. They're taken low by Kaithal, and they are also going to be losing tower just due to those buffed up minions. And then I don't even think Usain's going to be here in time. The Sejuani going to fall, and so now it's the 1v1 between the Forge God and the Moon Lady. Impact's Lunar trying to rush their way on over, busting out that Shirelius to try to get there in a time measurable. Also going to get a nice root up onto Kaithal. It's a 1v3, but Ornn trying to get one more kill before they fall, and they'll be able to do it. A 2-for-1 top side of the map. Meanwhile, Infernal Soul will be taken by the remaining members of TD Bank.
At the very least, you got shut down, but at what cost? It's still a 2v1, and as Zach wants to go in here, they don't have any inclination that he's right around this Raptor pit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Convey honestly could have gone in there, and I think there was a chance that they just got a kill. But I appreciate that they're playing a little bit safer. They're going to wait for this tier 1 turret mid to get wheedled down a little bit. House of Ronin now really kind of with their backs to the wall. They're losing priority across the map, not only in the form of the innate power of these champions, but because of these towers also being knocked down. They haven't lost an inhibitor yet. That is a big thing. We actually haven't really seen the inhibitors game and macro kind of come into play in the series yet. And so given the fact that no revolutionary fight has taken place around that last dragon, I think that this is going to be a game where House of Ronin will suffer a much more slow and painful death than what their counterparts did in game number 1.
Yeah, instead of, just getting slashed to ribbons, it's kind of like a house of 1,000 tiny little paper cuts. You slowly bleed over time. It's not fun. It feels absolutely painful. And the entire time, you just want it to end. And I feel like that's kind of how it is for House of Rona. They just kind of wanted this game to end and refocus up and go game 3. But the problem is, you shouldn't. I mean, yes, it's 8K, but I've seen plenty of games you and I both know that can turn around from this. The main thing is, all right, what's our win condition? What's our strength? Jin is their win condition right now. 6-1-4. You look at those items. You look at how well he's playing. He is your win potential. So instead of trying to engage and get all these bursts, look for one champion to go in on, and then try and burst them down. If it hasn't worked, then go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, Inferno's going to be channeling their ultimate to come on. I mean, excuse me, not their ultimate, but their teleport to come on in here to stop the continued fight up against Kaithal, who was caught out by several members of House of Ronin, and now it's just turning into another siege situation. House going to have to try to put their best foot forward and defend up against this collapse from TD Bank. Measurable going to have to Gale Force outside of the realm of Zach. And so this tower most likely going to be going down, but no kills have been given up to TD. And so that means that House of Ronin have a second chance at life. They can group around another one of their turrets and try to make a play there. Kaithal trying to go back here. Will get interrupted by Usain, but now Convey wants to come forward and start a fight for themselves. They're going to flash on in. Renata Glask ultimate going to be channeled. The hostile takeover is going to grab no one. That being said, Measurable's in a lot of trouble now due to Inferno's took. And now it is just 2 members of Blue Squad trying to hold out in their base while Yasuo and Sejuani both channel the recalls.
Yeah, and essentially they want to try and maybe end, but I think they might have bitten off a little more than they can chew if they get back in time. But I do respect the fact that House of Orion realizes, okay, that's fine if we give up an inhib. We would rather take some of the extra turret gold. I mean, they gained 700 off that top and mid, so at least they got something back in their pocket. And the main thing is they're just trying to stall this game out because in 230 is that Elder Soul.
Yeah, Hussein gonna go on in onto Convey here, and they're going to drop their ultimate in as well. But unfortunately, the tankiness is too much to cut through. They don't have the damage. We've been saying that all game, Eternal. And so now Rimhang is going to have to run back towards their tower, but Swain's Claw is there to answer back. Infernos will get that kill, and so with 2 members of House of Ronin dead on the board, they are going to be pushed to their very limit to try to stay alive here. The triple kill so far for Swain. I think that this is just it for this game, Eternal.
I think it is too. I mean, you have a wave coming in. I think this is game 2 going over to the side of TDB, and it looks like what we talked about. They bounced back, they drafted a composition that works for them, and we're going to be going to a game 3.
And honestly, I could not ask for more. The exact situation with TD Bank that I wanted to have played out here for sure. I mean, they answered back against all of the shenanigans that House of Ronin brought on their heads in game number 1, and they showed that they are totally ready and willing to play that aggressive game. And in fact, they did it better, I think, than House of Ronin did in this game.
And I feel like you might be right. Maybe they actually have the stream on in the background. They're just kind of slowly listening to it while the game's over or whatever, because exactly what we had talked about. Hey, you need some type of engage. You need your top laner jungler to go in. You need someone that has DPS. That is what they drafted the second game. And House of Ronin, It felt like it was the opposite. They were able to get 4 kills. We thought, oh no, here we go again, repeat of game 1. But no, they realized we made a small mistake. That's not an issue. Go back to the top lane, punish them, get an extra 3 kills, gain that goal lead, and from that point, that was just a foot on the gas, and they never looked in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, for sure. Really happy to see TDA Bank break that
27,000.
curse here in week number 2. They've gotten a win on the board, and I think that they got a shot at this whole series. How's a Ronin shut down for sure here? And honestly, shout out to basically everyone, because this wasn't necessarily a sole player's effort. This was a team game. And I think that's what I'm happy about the most here. Kaito, incredible split pushes. Infernos obviously just became a massive raid boss. But Kunve, I mean, look at the plays that they facilitated. Look at their grit, their sheer willingness to take risky fights and sustain themselves long enough for members to rotate up to, say, top lane. I mean, that was all really important. And I'm very, very happy to see TD Bank bring their A game to this one. And yeah, they definitely have the momentum going on into game number 3. With that all in mind, everyone, we're going to throw to a quick break because I want to get into that third game as fast as possible here. Because, hey, this matchup, this set deserves an incredible conclusion. So with that in mind, we are going to be going away for just a little bit, but make sure that you guys don't adjust your sets. Stay here and get ready for an incredible game number 3.
Minions have spawned. First blood. Shut down. Triple kill. Minions have spawned. First blood.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League Gold Division. We are here with a game 3 ahead of us between House of Ronin and TD Bank. But before we get into the draft for that, let's look really quickly at the schedule update. We've got some big games going down and some actual contestations, 1-1 here between House of Ronin and TD Bank. But also, look at this Conduit climbing back against Kopi's here, going a 1-1. So that series also is yet to be decided. A lot of action across the league for sure.
Yeah, and I own it as a clean 2-0 sweep. I mean, GSG and Monkeys were probably some of the more heavy favorites to win that. So nice 2-0 for them for this week. They should feel proud of themselves. Sun Kappa, I mean, they were known last season as Sun Goku. They changed the name a little bit this year. 2-0 again. They must have been worked on something. Either their name is making good vibes or whatever, because they're essentially a nice 4-0 team. But yeah, for the Noxus division itself, Conduit bouncing back, forcing a game 3. So now it's going to be a test of mental and kind of what we're seeing here, you win one game, you lose one game. Do you essentially get 2-0 in the series, technically, if you want to call it back-to-back games, or do you find, okay, game 2 was just an issue, either some small mistakes, whatever, and then come back strong and finish off in game 3?
Yeah, and that's quite the question to end on right there, Eternal, because I mean, right now, House of Ronin's got to be an interesting situation. I talked a little bit at the start of game number 2 about how, given the fact that TD Bank basically said, we're going to try to beat you at your own game, and they succeeded, that has got to
Yeah.
be a huge blow to House of Ronin's overall tempo and the momentum that they were hoping to have in this series. We've seen what happens when House of Ronin counters TD Bank's preferred strategy, but we haven't seen what happens yet if when House of Ronin loses at their own game to TD Bank.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen that yet. Obviously, we saw, like what we mentioned, game 1, kind of something they felt more comfortable on, didn't exactly pay out. Game 2, they did more front-to-back team fight, more initiation tools. We saw that pay huge dividends, and night and day from game 1. So game 3 is going to be, I don't want to see go back to the comfort picks that they did in game 1. I felt more comfortable saying that game 2, that initiation front to back style, having that front line, allow them to transition into a nice hefty goal lead. But we'll have to see. Maybe there's something the coach sees differently than us.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I'm interested to check on here is what bans are going to look like for House of Ronin.
Yes.
TD Bank pivoted very hard and were super responsive to what House of Ronin played in game number 1 when it came to their bans for the second draft. Will House of Ronin start knocking out the Tristana? Will they knock out that Zac? Things like that? Or are they going to just kind of stick with what they were banning in games 1 and 2 here? That's definitely going to be the question at hand as we move on over to the draft in just a few moments.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting because we mentioned before, games 1 and 2, it was the same 3 bands. It was that Karma, Kane, Yumi pick. Okay, Karma, Kane, Yumi ban again. And if you look to the side of TD Bank, I mean, they took away that Seraphine Zarya combo. That was a huge problem for them. They took away Trundle. That was just this disgusting raid boss. I'll keep saying that because essentially that's what he was. They took it out of the equation, and their mid laner, Yasuo, the game too. I felt like never was an impact or a factor at all during the entire match.
For sure. And one could just say that that was an unfortunate chain of events early
It
on,
was. It
but
was.
Yasuo could be very much a gamble, especially in Gold Elo, because they are such a difficult champion. And when you fall behind, you basically have to rely on very solid technical prowess in fights in order to try to get back the damage that you were lacking. And unfortunately, we didn't see that come through for House of Ronin in this game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a pivot away from the Yasuo in game number 3, especially given how a solid TD Banks mid laner is on that Swain.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see more or less what we saw in game 1. Probably like some type of control mage mid, whether that be a Victor, possibly we could see an Oriana make an appearance, right? Um, I don't think they're gonna want them on a hyperscaling champion. They could have. I mean, it was last week they played Yoni, so we could see that again instead of the Yasuo. But it's just, I feel like it's gonna be very situational based on how they want to draft. Um, I
Yeah,
think it's heavily. I think it's heavily relying on their jungle, personally, from what we've
mhm.
seen games 1 and 2.
I mean, honestly, I would love to see a total reversal of the game plan we were talking about so early on in this set, Eternal. What if at the end here, House of Ronin goes full scale? They decide to play defensively and allow for TD Bank to go for the same aggro picks that they took here in game number 2. I mean, it really could be a
That could
huge
honestly
mix-up
work.
and be a big statement if House of Ronin could win this game with those scaling picks that we can play both fast and we can also take it slow and win through the long game. I mean, we've seen very, very accelerated matches so far, and so maybe slowing it down could potentially be an answer here.
I mean, there's plenty of comps you can run that are scaling at least just have one lane that has is an early to mid game, aggressive. I mean, you could throw. Honestly, like I said, I don't know if they play Akshan. Maybe you could do Akshan. Either Zeri, Sivir with a Tarek bot. I mean, Tarek, I personally, and you play support. I feel like he's a very underrated champion right now. Whether or not he's used in a top lane as a tank, he can even jungle by himself or as support. He provides so much utility to your team, and just like Seraphine, he's extremely hard to get rid of.
Yeah, definitely. I love Tarek, and I play Tarek quite a bit myself in that support role. But the one thing that I will note, and this is something I actually just saw yesterday in Aegis, is that this is a champion that you need to probably pick, not necessarily as a counter pick, but you need to know what you're going up against in lane because
Mm.
you can easily just go for something like a Vel'Koz, like a Seraphine, and just completely outrange the Tarek and make it so it's impossible for them to get in. Because the thing is, Tarek is a champion, especially early on, that really requires him to be auto attacking, hopefully the champions on the enemy team, to actually get the cooldowns with his
Right.
passive. Otherwise, you're healing someone for like 20 health once, and that's just not
Yeah.
super efficacious. And so, yeah, I would love to see Tarek. I think Tarek is definitely a dark horse, has been fantastic ever since those buffs a few patches back. And so, yeah, seeing that is definitely high on my list of priority for champions that I would love to see come out here. But yeah, it definitely takes a prepared mind and a very well-structured team composition, I think, for it to work. But yeah, I mean, definitely one of my fantasies up there. If it isn't going to be a cheese lane or some bizarre off meta pick, Tarek, it gets my thumbs up. That's for sure.
A little throwback. At least it's not the old Tarek, just a complete armor, shred, and that E that follows you wherever you go.
You see,
Kind of like
I'm
a.
new enough to like never have the privilege of playing these absolute
Oh,
travesties of
okay.
champions that I've heard. Like I've heard like old Poppy, old York were both just jokes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, speaking of Poppy,
Uh,
that also be a jungler that I would love to see come out here. It is so strong right now. Perma pick ban and high elo in a lot of competitive play, and so if someone has the ability to kind of leverage that, it doesn't have the same solo kill or dual potential that stuff like Trundle has, but it very much can take a team through into the long game.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And not only on top of that, right? Especially if Zach is using slingshots or some type of initiation that they go in on, you throw up that shield, you say, "No, not today," and you just back off and you just run away, and you're like, "All right, cool, that was, good job. I guess I'll see you whenever you come back in my lane again." But
Hmm.
yeah, Poppy's definitely one of the ones that can uh, eradicate a large amount of initiation.
Yeah, definitely. House of Ronin, though, looks pretty unperturbed from game number 2. They're just going to take away the classic Karma Yumi. We're going to
That
see if
is
they're going to go for that
okay.
three-peat there with the last ban. Right now, though, we are seeing the same kind of thing for TD Bank. They said,
Same
hey,
bands.
no more of that Seraphine, no more of that Trundle. We know what we could do against your comp if you draft what like you did in game number 2, though. And so with that in mind, they're going to stick with banning away the things that worked for House of Ronin in game number 1.
I mean, I do respect TD Banks, right? It worked in game two, do it in game three. I don't know, Karma, Yumi, Kane. I mean, okay, I can understand maybe the Kane or the Yumi, but I don't know. I feel like you're leaving a large amount of options that worked in their favor, especially the Zach swing picks that happen as we see a Hecarim being insta lock. So yeah, I think they're a little bit tired of what happened game two, and they're gonna come back with a vengeance in game three now.
It is really interesting to see the level of reactivity in the draft, right? This is not just
Yeah,
picking the meta
yeah,
champions that are not
yeah.
banned away. This is legitimately, wow, we hate how you played last game. Here's how we're going to respond. As the Amumu going to be hovered here by TD Bank. That's a really solid pick because it can be flexed there into the jungle role.
Yep.
But I feel that in coordinated play, the slow clear time basically relegates it to a support.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm very happy that he not only has 2 bandage tosses, but they're not as long because the way Amumu works compared to a lot of other champions is that's literally his only form of engage. Either
Mhm.
flash stun someone or just hopefully land a bandage toss, and if you didn't, you are effectively useless until that comes off cooldown. So you are not a champion. You are essentially a walking minion that is just has a bigger hitbox for the next 30 seconds. So, and we've seen that too, all the way from amateur level to pro scene. Having that extra bandage toss and the lower cooldown has completely changed the champion to a non-viable into a viable one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Amumu, you say that they have a shorter range on that bandage shots, but it's still one of the longest range engage, like pure lockdown tools in the game.
Well,
It's
I was saying timer.
so
I was saying like cooldown timer.
oh, gotcha. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
range wise, it's absolutely scary and disgusting and horrifying. And so, with that in mind, I really like its pickup here. I think that TD Bank looking for some of those explosive engages that got them so much in game. And number 2, Callista going to be locked in for House of Ronin. They were going for Shadow Isles Tribal there for a little bit. Renata Glask, though, going to be the last thing they claim in this first set of picks.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting, and we do see the Ornn being picked up. So TD Bank basically saying, we don't care what you pick in enemy top lane. We'll be fine. Unless it's a range top laner, then that lane can be kind of sad. I know. Range top laners are awful. We do see the Swain getting banned, and the same 2 bans from TD Bank that we saw in game 2 coming out again, the Fiora and the Victor. So they're saying, we know what's there, take it away. But because of the Swain ban, Viger mid is now an option for TD Bank if they want to go that route.
Yeah, and the last ban for House of Ronin will be that
Oh,
Viger
will
that's
be the
taken
Viger.
off the board here, unfortunately. But there's still
Bios is up.
definitely a pretty wide open pivot strategy that is available for TD Bank, depending on how high tempo they want that mid lane to be. Obviously, you still have to realize that House of Ronin has a pickup as well. I guess that it's ultimately going to be to them to decide the pace of that lane, and because their spawn is TD Bank. But yeah, the Lulu pickup is going to be what the Red Squad decides to go with here. And that means a Mumu Jungle is actually going to be what's on the board.
Yep, Mumu Jungle. Now they need, like how the game 2, you need a mid laner that has a large amount of damage, as Silas is being hovered, so that could be potential lock-in as well as a pick away. And that wouldn't be too bad for Ronin. There are plenty of, oh yeah, there are plenty of juicy ultimates for you. Oh man, Krista said, Mummy, call the Ford Godge. Not Polymorph. Up we go. No, not, I forget Lulu's ultimate.
I don't know. Just use
It's
any of the
tough.
terms that she says when she pops it, right?
Whims, Whimsy,
Hugify, you
like,
know.
I think it is Hugify. I'm not even kidding. I think it is actually Hugify.
I
Um,
think no, is it
either
Whimsy? No, is Whimsy her W?
I think Whimsy's her W, Polymorph is her E, and I think Hugify is her
No,
ultimate.
no. E
Actually,
is the shield. W is the polymorph, but I think that the polymorph is called Whimsy.
you're right. Yeah, yeah, because W is a speed up. You're right.
Well, regardless,
Oh
House of
my! I
Ronin going
have
for
not seen a cannon in a long time.
yeah, going for
A
the cannon
long
here.
time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Kassadin, also something I personally haven't seen for a while here, but wow,
Yeah.
TD Bank blending old and new in terms of their strategies. If they lock this in, this is definitely a scaler if there ever was one.
And okay, Cassidy, just like Kale, still level 16 timer pop off in these fights. So, and the thing too, I do like the Cassidy pick, just because if Hecarim goes in with Onslaught of Shadows, you just blip out of there. You just go, all right, cool. Thank you for going past me, and then you just completely save, doesn't affect you. But yeah, House of Ronin are looking for these big team fights, whether that's Kennen with the Shadow Storm or Hecarim Onslaught of Shadows, Callista throwing in Renata in the mix. Then you have Silas if he can steal Crystal Sad Mummy goes in. So both of these teams are just wanting to bash head and go front to back, and I am all here for it for a deciding factor game 3.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think another kind of edge case benefit of the Kassadin is that Silas doesn't really have a great ult to steal there. Obviously, you have the Amumu on the table as well as Ornn, so I don't know if you needed another ultimate to grab, but obviously Kassadin is the one they have the most access to, just being stuck in a lane with them. So that's something to watch out for, definitely. But overall, I really like what's happening here. Both teams have almost kind of matured just through the course of this series, Eternal. House of Ronin, maybe not quite as all in, but definitely still with a hint of aggression here and there. Silas, Callista, Renata, all champions that are able to do a lot early. But TD Bank, you know, they now have that good blend of CC and damage that we were really hoping for. They maybe went a bit overboard on CC, but it didn't really matter in game number 2. Here, you know, they are bringing the Lulu to the forefront. They have that damage dealer in the Kassadin. And I mean, you get a Mumu, and wow, what a champion right now in terms of their ability to just dictate the pace of fights. So I'm just overjoyed with how these teams are playing out. And honestly, I'm like a proud parent, you know? I feel like they have been listening to our broadcast. We're gonna take full credit, actually. Just you and I take
Yeah,
full
let's.
credit
Oh,
for the
let's say we
development.
should be. Yeah, we did this.
Mhm.
And
There
we'll
you
say,
go.
well, if they're listening for Side TD Bank, you definitely will need some early heal cut. There's plenty of champions that can outlast or sustain. So if you are listening, make sure to pick up early heal cut because you don't win those long trades.
House of Ronin, if you're listening, invade red buff, level 1.
5-man invade. 5-man invade.
You got to call for them to go top lane for the invade, because if they go bot lane, that's too obvious. It could have been done without them
Yeah,
listening to us.
exactly.
But yeah, if they invade top lane, you don't see that in gold. You don't see that in gold. It was definitely them
I
just
I
listening
don't
to
see
him.
any of my games either.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, overall, yeah, I'm sorry we're just kind of clowning around here with this last draft, but I think that's because there isn't a whole lot that I have in terms of concerns. Both of these teams have locked in very, very solid selections, and I think that it's really good just going to be up to individual player skill and team coordination to bring home the bacon and kind of close out this series in 2-1 fashion. House of Ronin definitely had a little bit of a roadblock ahead of them due to how game 2 played out. TD Bank, they got the wins at their backs, you know, after that game number 1. They clearly recovered, and now they have drafted themselves on a comp that can play fast, that can play slow, that has the ability to take a victory and actually bring them deeper on into Blue Otter League with a 1-1 record. So with all that in mind, we're going to throw it to a quick break, but when we return, it is going to be House of Ronin and TD Bank for the final round of the night.
Minions have spawned. First blood. Triple kill. Minions have spawned. First blood. Shut down. Triple kill. Minions have spawned. First blood.
Hello friends and welcome back to the Blue Otter League Gold Division. It is game number 3 between House of Ronin and TD Bank. I honestly didn't expect to make it here, but TD Bank has been making a statement in these games so far, Eternal, and I'm super excited to see how their comp plays out. They're a little bit more oriented back towards that scaling side of things, but man, they have the ability to make huge plays with that Ornn, with that Amumu.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the nail on the head. I mean, I didn't expect to be able to go to game 3 after the game 1. I was like, okay, maybe they can come back. I hope they do. It'd be exciting. But they did, and I mean, and they did so in a very flashy and basically a powerlifting kind of way. They realized the weakness, they adjusted on the fly. That game 2 was completely in their favor, and as we see game 3, now this is when we start kind of getting the nerves and the little tension of what they're trying to do. You start overthinking some plays, maybe you're undermining some of the damage, and as we see, that Amumu is playing with fire right now.
Yeah, for sure.
This
Rimhane
is
gonna push
insane.
forward here. You know, I kind of wish that House of Ronin went for that full 5-man invade topside towards red. I did tell them to do it, and now, you know, my heart has to lie with the TD Bank because they didn't listen. What else can I say?
They did not listen. I feel like they definitely would have caught out the Ornn and probably got a first blood there. I mean, I 100% agree with that decision right there. But I mean, Convey, that was just a good just standing there, barely dodging. Chains miss. Cool. I'll just recall in your face. Pick up a nice little sweeper for myself, as does the Hecarim. And the one thing is, of this game, however, Convey is actually going to be pathing top side, whereas Usain is actually going to be pathing bot side. So finally, game 3, the junglers are kind of switching the routes, but only slightly.
Yeah, for sure. It's still going to be opposite side pathing. We've seen that every single game so far. And that means that these junglers aren't necessarily 1v1ing each other, but there will be pressure on opposite sides of the map. And if one of these players ganks, I think that what this leads to is a little bit of vertical jungling, a little bit like what happened to Usain in game number 2. They saw the Zac play bot side, and they decided to continue to visit Kythel gank after gank, basically.
Yeah, and honestly, kind of looking at the pathing and things like that, you mentioned that as a boomer, you don't want to fight other than those early on. You're extremely weak. Hecarim, you definitely want to invade. So Hecarim could have invaded if you wanted to do blue, just take the red and then immediately back off and kind of take reference on the out path if you wanted to. But since he smited Gromp, well, both junglers smited Gromp, which is perfectly fine. He decided not to press his luck. This is a big game 3. You don't want to give over any advantages to the opposition. And as we're seeing, the Kalista Renata lane slowly gaining priority as they both hit level 2 while Jinx is still level 1.
Yeah, Impact Lunar and Measurable just trying to make the most of their level 2 power spike, but TDK and AP Buggy doing so well, just giving respect over to the fact that that power spike comes through for Measurable. On that Kalista, who is just so good so early on, obviously one of those just kind of classic lane dominant ADCs. Top side of the map, Kythel down 1 level against Ronin Seiya, who's getting quite a bit of poking, even manages to get Kennen stun off. So they have quite the health advantage, but Convey, top side of the map, definitely don't count out Red Squad.
No, he's not. And if you look at the waste that he's got, that almost frozen under the tower, so I wouldn't be surprised if Convey wants to come up here, and he will.
Yeah, headbutt to start things off. Ronin Seiya maybe thinking that something's up. They're actually going to continue to push back in, and boom, bandit shots going to land. Flash coming through from Kennen, but they forgot about the second charge, and so TD Bank going to claim first blood there. Solid heads up a play from the Amumu, and we'll see how Hecarim is going to respond.
Yep, and I mean, if you know that, okay, Hecarim is on the bot scuttle, this is where your jungler should be communicating of, hey, I'm on bot scuttle, Amumu isn't down here. Unfortunately, he couldn't communicate that in time, and he gets the roam off, and you see a gank mid happening.
Yeah, Inferno's going to have to flash out of that one. Still impacted a little bit by Hecarim E, but is able to get out alive. And we see Convey and Bush over here just waiting to see if there's an opening, channeling it back all the while. I like what happened there. I think that Usain did a really good job of just trying to focus down the Kassadin early, and getting that summoner spell out is going to be pretty crucial for the lane. Meanwhile, bot side of the map, Measurable pushing forward, will get hit by Lulu W for at least a little bit, but is going to continue to be aggressive. Ren doing a lot to poke down AP Buggy. That being said, Measurable taking a lot of damage in return, so Impact Lunar going to just have to work as the front line for the time being.
The only difference in the way this matchup works is both ADCs did take cleanse, but again, no heal for either side. You have the exhaust on AP Buggy, and you have the ignite Impact Lunar. So if Kalista wants to go in, Lunar's going to have to burn that ignite, and at the same time, you're going to have that exhaust on the Lulu to slow down the Kalista. So it's going to be very careful, as Kalista actually burned Flash. There's no summoner spells. We see a Mumu roaming bot side.
Yeah, you have to give so much respect now to that river and to bot side for TD Bank, because I mean, House of Ronin basically lost their big engage tool in the form of Kalista Flash there. I like the play, trying to go aggressive early could have been enough to pressure out TDK or AP Buggy, but now you're in this weird situation where you want to be the aggressor, but you're lacking the tools in order to do so.
And now you kind of look at, they're kind of being pushed off the way right now. They cannot afford to step up because they didn't have vision in that tri-bush. They didn't know where Amumu was at. They didn't know if he was sitting in tri or if he was still in the river. So they had to give a little bit of leniency over to this wave. They won't lose much, but if you're the side of TDB, that's what you want to do. Crash this wave, slowly crash the wave, and get a free recall off.
Yeah, for sure. You do have the ability to use Kalista W as a means by which to police River, so you're at least a little bit safer up against an approach
Oh,
from Convey.
solo
That being
bolo.
said, someone who is not safe is Ronin Seiya getting solo bolo topside by Kaithal, and that's a scary position. I feel that Kaithal's been doing so well getting kills down on to their lane opponent, even on something that's typically as passive as an Ornn.
I mean, I feel like he's the unsung hero, and we saw, especially game 2, he's escaping all those ganks from Sejuani and Diana form, and we're seeing him again. He helps Amu get first blood. He's able to get a solo kill by himself. He's able to effectively shove the wave under the turret, and you see him walking down there to make sure there's vision. He's starting up Scuttle for his jungler. I mean, Kaithal, this is what you want in a top laner. A nice tank that's willing to help out the team. Beautiful. It brings tears in my eyes every time.
For sure, and Kaithal gonna return up here. Ronin Seiya trying to move with that wave, taking quite a bit of damage in kind, and so they're once again going to get poked down. And so yet again, the Ornn has a lot of priority by which to pressure, and Convey is going to use that to go for this invade. Hecarim is up here though. Usain is going to be able to catch out this invade attempt onto the blue buff. The question is, can Ornn or Kennen come on down? It doesn't look like anything is going to continue to happen. You're saying not going to give chase as Convey is up a level, but no blue buff to be stolen by TD Bank.
No, and that was very smart for Convey to back off. Smite was not available. You don't want to burn Curse with Sad Bombing for effectively what is just a buff at that point. Because of the wave state, Saya has ultimate on Kennen. He's able to roll him down with priority, so I like the idea. He tried, just unfortunately Hecarim was able to recall and charge back there to the blue side. We kind of get the gold lead. 600 advantage for the top laner, and in the bot lane as well, they're pretty much even around the board. But that Ornn, the Kaithal, yes, Ornn is scary, but a fed Ornn is just one that you cannot get through no matter how much you punch him.
I love the almost monthly Twitter discourse of, hey, are we undervaluing Ornn? And I feel like the answer is almost always yes. Champion is monstrous. The CC, the damage that they can provide is also absurd. And man, they get so tanky, and they also distribute ornaments. Mwah. Chef's kiss. What a dream of a champion there in the top lane. And Call of the Forge God is going to rain down. The knockup is going to occur. And Ronin Seiya yet again is picked off by Kaithal. And honestly, that lane is basically over. And what do you do as a Kennen in this situation?
Survive. There's your answer. You can't win trades. He's now, I mean, you got the null magic mantle. He's eventually going to build, you know, force of nature and just negate anything you even try to attempt at him. So this is kind of where you call your jungler up for help. But the problem is, if you call your jungler up for help, then that lets Amumu either come mid against the Sylas or go bot lane and essentially shut down the Kalista. So because of the mistakes early game topside, it's putting their team at a huge disadvantage, and you'll slowly see that as the game progresses, as they start this dragging from the side of Orion.
Yeah, House of Ronin going to start taking that away here. We do have Rift Herald up, and Convey is moving towards that river. It's probably just going to be a trade of objectives here. Inferno's already shoved in, as is kind of expected of a Kassadin early on, so isn't really able to get much presence into the river. And I like the fact that TD Bank, you know, they're able to take a step back. They do have that lead. It's not necessarily the biggest in the world, but that crushing inevitability that they're scaling champions like the Jinx, like the Kassadin have, means that, yeah, we don't have to contest every dragon, especially if we're getting a Rift Herald in return. Right,
and you can easily, I mean, yes, Ornn has taken some plays topside, so if you want to go on the Ornn basket, you can definitely play it, and yep, that's what they're going to do. And yeah, Sai has to just back off on this. You know that if I come on topside to gank him, but I mean, an early Ornn with a Frostfire, not even 10 minutes, that's already annoying. An Ornn that's 2 kills on you and has solo killed you twice in lane, that's just arrogance and annoyance and frustrating at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Hecarim going to try to go in on mid onto Infernos. Ultimately, the Kassadin will be able to just ult their way out, and that's one of those frustrating things. You really kind of want to get something in return for what's happening topside as House of Ronin, but that's just not possible right now. Measurable going to try to ult up with Impact Lunar after Hostile Takeover is utilized. That being said, it's not looking too good for the blue team down here as TDK gets excited, grabs themselves a kill alongside AP Buggy. They're going halvesies, and they're going to start taking some turret plates because of it.
And the main importance in that, is Lulu polymorphed her exactly right when she tried to get the rend off. Didn't have
Yeah, and
anything
look at
but
this. Convey
Convey
just going to
mid.
kind of run down onto Rimhang. They have the 2 charges of Q, and they're going to land with their first one. Curse of the Sad Mummy also popping out here. Hecarim going to try to go in to peel away from their lane partner. It's just not going to work, though, as the Amumu will take one, and Kaithal is in the area with that long range call, the Forge God ult, just to make sure that everything is coming up TD Bank.
When it rains, it pours. Not only did your bot lane lose a 2v2, but you've effectively lost a 2v2 mid. Ornn joins the party, and Kennen did not have the roam potential, so Ornn gets a free call the Forge God, a 3-0 into Ornn. And yeah, I mean, if you're House of Ronin, I think you start sweating a little bit. I mean, you're down 7 kills, and it's not even 15 minutes yet. And the enemy has scaling champions, as you mentioned, the Ornn, the Cassin, and the Jinx. This is a problem, and your timer is effectively running short.
Yeah, and when you have basically a 3,500 closing on 4,000 gold gap at 11 minutes, and it's only just going to get worse because of the utilization of Rift Herald, I really don't know what else to say. Kaithal going to have to try to headbutt their way out of this one, as you're saying, did have a health advantage, but Convey wants to turn this one back around. Hecarim is all locked up. It's going to be the Amumu going on a killing spree, and they are going to go halvesies topside as well. The desperation is thick in the air for House of Ronin. They're going to try to do something bot side as well, but Measurable getting polymorphed right back up. They have a bunch of spears in the Lulu, but look at how low the Kalista is in response to flash forward from AP Buggy, and it's going to lead to Impact Lunar falling, and it's followed up by TDK PBT. Wow, 0-11 right now. TD Bank on the top of their game.
Oh, man. So the only reason why Amumu lived through that was thanks to that Triumph rune. The Triumph allowed him to get just the extra health back to stave off the cannon, and unfortunately they lose 2 kills that side. The Renata, Kalista do not have the damage. I mean, the Jinx had a pickaxe, so that's free damage she has. Cannot trade against her. And now you just gave over another 4 kills. We talked about how they're on a timer. The timer hourglass, yeah, it's just kind of broken, and now the sand is just free falling off the bottom. I mean, you're up 7,000 gold, and it hasn't even hit 15 minutes yet.
Yeah, Ronin Say going to get knocked up against the remnants of their own turf, but Hussein is here to try to get the shutdown started on to the Ornn. But look at how tanky this monster is. The slowdown and the fire breath enough to make sure that first the cannon will fall, and now there's a huge 4-level gap between Kaithal and Hussein. And while Hecarim is doing all that they can with their Qs and with their R, they just cannot help but give up the double-double to this unstoppable top laner.
You have a 4-0-3 Ornn. Your cannon is 0-4 and doesn't have a mythic. All you have is a broken gear that's part of an item. You have a Sheen. Congratulations, your pony has a headless horseman that has no item and a tear that's crying out of his eyes because of the lack of damage. You're throwing objectives away for nothing, and you're looking at a 13 kills to 0. And it's, oh man, and it's
AP Buggy a little bit caught up, will just be able to ult themselves and turn this around yet again as Convey is in the area, and they have a hyped up Jinx at their back as well. The double-double so far for the Sad Mummy Boy. Then they're going to help knock up the Silas to make sure that the Ornn gets one more kill. Everyone pivots back down for a Dragon Party, and honestly, what can you even do as House of Ronin now? 0-16 at 14 minutes. This is a more than a bloodbath. This is an entrail shower.
I feel like at this point you just kind of cry because everything you've planned for is just completely eroded. You at least have bounties, so you can try and focus on that, but I mean, you look at those gold. I mean, 3,000 top, a 3,000 jungle, 600 mid. Okay, sure. 1,500 ADC, and then another 1,400 as support. I mean, and this is probably another dead cannon.
Oh, gosh.
Oh no.
Look at this. Kaithal whiffs their ultimate on both activations, and they're still just gonna run the cannon down. Headbutt coming forward here. There is a little bit of a gap, and Silas is coming around here, so this could turn back into a 2v1, but Kaithal's Bellow's Breath will be able to reach, and now Rimhang has to try to deal with someone 3 levels there, Senior. Stolen Call of the Forge God ultimate is going to put a brutal stack onto Kaithal, but Convey is going to walk on in leisurely because of the durability that Kaithal is bringing to the table, and the Silas is in trouble now. Usain going to ult into a dead teammate. The question is, can they finally burn down the Forge God before they get another double kill on the board? The answer is no, and that counter stays at 0 for House of Ronin. They throw everything into these fights, Eternal, and they just are unable to get anything out of them.
Oh man, and yeah, Hecarim is trying to figure out what to do. You just saw him sell a bunch of items and rebuy them back, trying to figure out, okay, what I need to focus on one item here, and yeah, it's just, oh man, there's that force of nature I was telling you about. Yeah, good luck with any magic damage. You already were dealing negative damage with the cannon and Silas together. You really don't do anything. And yeah, I was saying that, you know, if you're the side TDK, you need a heal cut. Well, you don't need heal cut if you're constantly smashing them in the face and they're bleeding out already. Yeah, at this point, as much as they want to fight and come back in the game, this isn't like game 1 or game 2. You don't have the same items advantage. You don't have the same level advantage that you did. At this point, you just need to play very passively. Farm, take what you can, rotate to certain objectives, or, and what I mean objectives is not dragons, but if they're on a dragon, go to like 1 tower, get something back, because at this point, any scrap you need to take for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, honestly, House of Ronin needs to just stop trying to go for any kind of fight, including this one right here. Kaithal just going to leisurely stroll into that mid lane. Hussein trying to stick on to this Ornn, but I mean, he's level 14. What exactly can you do when there's a 5 level difference here? They're going to call the Forge God down on 2 other members from House of Ronin trying to get onto this tank, and it just does not matter what Blue Squad does. They will get punished for it. I've seen divine punishment, and it is what is here in this game, Eternal. That's going to be 2 dead now for House of Ronin. We aren't even at a point where Baron's up, so honestly, you could count your lucky stars. You're this far behind this early, because I mean, you could only just use the raw manpower TD Bank has to push down these lanes.
Yeah, it's just, why are you fighting? Like, it clearly hasn't worked the other 17
Oh,
down.
Rimhang as well. Yeah, trying to get something here. Convey just going to ride their Q on in. And the Silas is so low. Hussein is going to try to give chase at least a little bit here. But the split is also very much in favor of Kaithal and company, as they're going to be able to get a wave crashed up topside. Yeah, right now, this is basically an unmitigated disaster for House of Ronin, and you know, I've seen big throws. We were talking about how people can throw 10k gold leads. This isn't a 10k gold lead at this point. This is 14,000 gold lining the pockets of TD Bank above what House of Ronin is making at 19 minutes.
I'll make it spicy. I have never seen a team throw 14,000 gold in a game before. I have never, in my entire experience, see a team lose while they were ahead 14k gold. Maybe I can caster jinx them a little bit. But I mean, you look at that Thornmail on the Ornn, that's just, now your Kalista doesn't do anything on top of it. You thought it was bad enough with the with one item. Now, okay. Well, I think Infernos decided he wanted a little pony as a treat and broke its back, because that's another dead Hecarim, 0 and 7. And you know,
I didn't even notice at this point. I am so
I just saw it pop up and I was like, oh.
I'm so desensitized.
Hey, there we go. You can't do dragon. Get a tower. Yeah. Thank you. There you go. That's the first tower of the game. Almost 20 minutes in. At least they got something back. But
one of the things that they teach you when you first start casting is like you have to figure out when to get hype. And usually you get hype around kills. But now it's happened 23 times, and I'm just kind of bored of it. All right, Ronin, Seiya, and Rimhang trying to do all that they can to take down Kaithal, who's just happy to walk straight into the enemy team. TDK from across the map going to shoot downtown and grab themselves a kill with Super Mega Death Rocket. and Convey just going to latch on to the enemy blue buff. Ronin Seiya with a tear in the eye just has to move back towards lane while that is taken away from them as well. The Baron has started up and they're going to try to take it on cooldown. Hussein is going to crest the corner though. They are zoned a little bit by the very least by Kaithel, but there is a chance that they can go for some kind of crazy steal here. Unfortunately, that reality is not this one, as Hecarim is going to immediately get melted down by the Jinx. Ronin Seiya and Impact Lunar can do nothing but try to run away from the steam train of 5 members. TD Bank going to grab themselves another 2 kills, walk straight towards mid lane, no back necessary, and at this point, what can you do but dance in front of tower measurable?
Yeah, this game has completely gotten away from them. Everything that they wanted to do, they completely fumbled it. And every single time they try to come back in the game, they realize that you're missing some items, you're missing a bunch of gold. And at this point, you look at 16,000 gold, 21 minutes in. That's now 14,000 gold. So, hey, I mean, there's still a chance, but the chance is very slim as we see him pushing down the top side tower.
Yeah, for sure. You know, honestly, at this point, I think that it would be a fair game if TD Bank FF'd as soon as they die once. Even then, I think there's like a 60% chance that they win this game.
I mean, their best chance is probably going after the Lulu or the Jinx.
Yeah, going after the Lulu or Jinx, I guess. I mean, the Amumu's super tanky at this point. The Ornn is literally untouchable, and the Kassadin can escape from whatever the heck they want right now. 2 levels away from Casa win, but honestly, do you even need to get to that point? Your Ornn is just absolutely monstrous, distributing those upgraded items now, not only to the Jinx, but to the Kassadin.
Yep, just about to mention that. I mean, that Kraken is going to be more powerful. You look at Kassadin locking down in place again. And yeah, you look at Amumu. I mean, he even picked up a, not a Majai's Soul Stealer. Yeah, picked up a Majai's. And 9 stacks on it so far. I think we'll see that.
That's just Dark Seal. They haven't gotten Medjai's yet.
Or Dark Seal, you're right. Okay, that's what it was. I was like, not Majai's, Dark Seal. Dark Seal builds into it. But yeah, you look at Ornn, he picked up another Warden's Mail. I wonder if that will be a Randuin's or something similar, maybe a Frozen Heart. Obviously, if you pick up a Frozen Heart, that's the correct build. That's what you would go. Get a little more CDR is, yeah, you can't defend this tower, even with all 5. You know, they just had 2 people. You just have to get all these towers.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even kind of just standing in that interstice between the 2 towers is dangerous because you have the long range of the Jinx and you have the ability to move forward on Inferno's champion, right? Impact Lunar going to be thrown forward here and going to try to toss out a hostile takeover. It will berserk up the Jinx, at least for a little bit, and this is going to be the dive. Ronin Seiya finally tried to get a kill here, but look at the heals coming out of AP Buggy. That ult has done so
No!
Inferno's as well getting some kills for themselves, and once again the attempt by House of Ronin to get even 1 kill on the board is going to be thwarted. They were so close to knocking down TDK, but it does not matter because the only thing that's going to fall now is the remaining towers on the side of House of Ronin. TD Bank going to end this completely deathless across the map, a whopping 20,000 gold in their favor, and they're gonna shut this down in 23 minutes.
I mean, it's kind of hard to analyze a game when there's one team has 33 kills, the other one doesn't even have 1.
I mean, yeah. Well, what can we say that doesn't just you know, sound like Flame? I guess House of Ronin just
be thankful that you only play him once so far in the regular season, and hopefully this doesn't happen again.
I guess so. I mean, like, I think that the problem is that after a certain point, House of Ronin got desperate, and because of that, their threat assessment just fell out the window, right? They stopped really trying to figure out, hey, what can I do against a champion that is 4 levels up on me? Their thought process was just, wow, that's a juicy shutdown, let's go in. And because of that, they just died on repeat and gave up way too much. TD Bank didn't need to play a watertight macro game there. They didn't need to play team fights perfectly. They just needed to exist, stand in lanes, tank some damage, and they're just doing everything in kind right back to the enemy team with absolutely no answer to be had by House of Ronin. Wow. we talked a little bit about momentum throughout this series here, Eternal, and I gotta say, TD Bank unperturbed after that first game, and they just submarined this series, and they got out 2-1 in a deservedly powerful and emphatic fashion.
And I mean, you called it, right? You said, okay, what if they come back game two, the momentum changes, they carry that over to game three, and they come back 2-1 the series. That's literally what we saw, right? They came back game two, they knew they could do it, and you look at those damage numbers. I mean, just the Ornn itself, the Ornn did 20,900 damage that game, right? You take the Hecarim, the Silas, and the Callista. That just barely eclipses over that 20,000 threshold. He had his most damage as 3 champions combined. Take
Mhm.
out the cannon. The cannon was constantly battling on the top lane, and we saw the result of that, constantly dying over on repeat and repeat. Um, but yeah, I just think at this point, this is one of those games where it completely got away from you. You were trying to just throw whatever at the problem and hope it stuck. And you could
Mhm.
kind of sense that desperation, especially in the last 8 to 9 minutes of just, all right, go in, all right, go in, all right, go in. And it just, I felt like at that time they kind of just mental boomed and gave up and realized that the series was lost.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I mean, House of Ronin, I think they play a very fast. They play a fiery game. They either burn out into ashes or they will win thundering on ahead. And so I would love to see a little bit more adjustment out of them in these games. Don't just throw everything away if you feel like the game is getting away from you at the
Yeah.
5 to 7 minute mark. There's so much more of the game to be played, and I think that we're going to be seeing that growth, seeing that adaptation from them as we move deeper on into the Gold League here at Blue Water, because like I said, this is only week 2. We've got a lot
Yeah,
ahead
it's
of us,
very
and
early.
we can definitely see TD Bank continue to grow and develop their strategies. And we can see House of Ronin come back, run it back against this team later on, and show why they were so dominant in week 1, right? There's so much on the board to watch on either side, and I'm super, super happy to have witnessed such an incredible series so early on, because I think it really speaks to what Blue Water League has in store for everyone who tunes in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, it's perfectly. It's so early in the season. I mean, there was a team that was 2-4 at one point. Their chance to make the playoffs were completely slim, and then in the second half they won, or they won every single game except for the game that they expected to lose against the top seed, and then they snuck in as the the number 4 seed. So like anything can completely happen at this point. It's still extremely early. Nothing's set in stone, right? We're still trying to figure out where the balance is, what teams, playmakers. But for TDB, I mean, that game 3, they came out harder and stronger than the game 2. And if they play like that level for the rest of this season, that is a big wake up call for some of the other aforementioned teams that we thought would be top 3.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, all that speculation you kind of have to put aside when you see a game like what happened at the last point in this series, right? What can you really talk about in terms of analytics? Talking about, oh, this team's the favorite because they won the first week, when
Right,
someone
right.
is literally going 35-0 collectively. There's just nothing much else to say. Absolutely a TD Bank fan now after that. What a huge statement to really open up and inaugurate oneself into BOL. And I hope that everyone who tuned in tonight also very much enjoyed watching that. We are going to be here basically every week from now on. We
Mhm.
got so much going forward to share with you all. A lot of big games and an incredibly tightly run a ship thanks to the efforts of everyone on the production staff. I really just got to shout out what people are bringing to the table. Metro just doing an incredible job getting replays for us, making sure that the stream goes off without a hitch. We couldn't have done it without them. Eternal, I couldn't have done this without you, that's for sure. I overjoyed to be casting again for BOL, and I'm so happy to be able to do it with you for sure.
Likewise, Narco. I appreciate coming out here being my caster. You already hit production. I'll mention them again and thank him. Also for the fans at home, right? I mean, you're the ones coming out here. You're viewing the channel. You're actually being interested in the game. If you want to help out the community, I mean, there are some Blue Outer League keychains that you can purchase. Have them for yourself. I know a lot of people that currently have one. Just they like that little symbol. This is something I'm involved in. This is something I am proud of in this community. So I'll kind of drop that in the ring. But overall, no. I mean, I'm glad to be partnering with you, Yarker, for this season. I'm very excited for what this has to offer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, make sure you guys go check out that keychain. You know, if you want to unlock more content with Blue Otter League, there's no better way to do it than with something to accompany your keys. That's at blueotterleague.net. So make sure to check out not only our store there, but also all the information regarding these various leagues throughout the week. You'll be able to see the standings that we posted about on stream and whatnot. It's all there for you to check out. Get involved with us because we're running a fantastic league week after week at all levels of play, at all elos. So, you know, we always will have something for you guys. And hey, thank you so much for just tuning in and watching this. If this is your first time with us, please leave us a follow on Twitch and whatnot. We would appreciate it deeply. And yeah, like I said, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. We are going to end it off for the night. Thank you so much for watching.
Minions have spawned.